All right, so we're going to get going here. Good evening, everybody, especially our members of the audience here in uniform. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the South Burlington City Council meeting for Monday, July 21st, 2025. We're going to start our meeting tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance being led by our new City Councilor, Ann Pugh. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ann. Next, we'll go to instructions on exiting this building in case of an emergency and review of the technology options with Jesse Baker, the city manager.
Thank you. So thanks to everyone who is joining us in the room tonight, maybe some future city managers or city councilors in front of us. If you are here to speak during an agenda item, you can come up to the podium and the chair will call on you. If there's an emergency in this room, you can go out the rear of the auditorium to the left or right and then turn left or right to get outside. For those who are joining us remotely, if you are interested in speaking on an item on the agenda, we ask that you put in the chat which item you would like to speak on, and the chair will call on you. Other than that, we are not monitoring the chat for content.
Thank you, Jesse. Item 3, which is agenda review. Do we have any additions, deletions, or changes in the order of the agenda items tonight? No? Okay. We'll go to item 4 now. This is a time for comments and questions from the public that are for items that are not related to our agenda tonight. Are there any? Wendell, come on up. You had your hand up first.
Well, I admit I came tonight mostly to play the devil's advocate.
Okay, and remember to identify yourself.
It's on, isn't it?
It's on.
From my point of view, South Burlington is a city without speed limits. I know you can look around and you see all these signs and they got numbers on them. But nobody ever seems to pay any attention to them. And by my observation, there's been very little enforcement. I got the speeds I see cars driving is amazing. And that's the end of my comment.
Thank you, Wendell. Next, coming up, please. Anybody online at all?
Yep.
Okay.
My name is Rose Goddard.
Can you sit down and make sure the green light is on the microphone
Green's
first?
light on, and I'm
Okay,
sitting
yeah.
down.
I heard you. Rose?
I did it right. Rose Goddard.
Okay.
And I'm here regarding the property on the corner of Dorset and Park Road, and asking that the council look into repurchasing that property from the Jam developers. That particular property is the crown jewel of South Burlington. And it's really sad. Once it's developed, it's gone. It happened at Overlook Park. And, well, you're familiar with all of that. So I did a written request and distributed to everyone. And I would ask your consideration of looking at repurchasing that property for our generations to come and enjoy.
Great. Thank you very much. Anybody else in the audience tonight? Anybody in uniform want to get up and talk about? Nope. Okay. Just asking. Anybody online?
Nope.
Okay. So we're going to move to item 5, which is the councilor's announcements and reports on committee assignments and the city manager's report. Who would like to start tonight? Ann?
I'm not on any committee.
Okay.
I'm not on any. Oopsie. I'll get the hang of this. I'm not on any committees. I do participate in the recreation department, and exercise class is going very well, as was the Thursday night at the park.
Right. Thank you. Lori?
I just came from the Parks and Open Space Advisory meeting, and they were presenting summaries of the surveys and meeting in a box data that they've been gathering. Some very interesting information. Over 2% of the population, or 485 people, responded to the survey, which is a pretty darn good response. 80% were residents, 62% female, and 88% were homeowners. So it's not a representative sample, but it's a lot of good response. Big issues, beach, outdoor swimming area. And one of the things that, and swimming pool, those are like the two big that come up, and a rec center. But that's, the most surprising to me was that over 77% of the respondents responded overwhelmingly to preserving of open spaces. And I thought that was a really interesting feedback from the broad community, saying that preservation of open spaces is really important. There was also a question about how much of the penny for open space fund should be used for maintenance as opposed to purchase. And there's interest in maintenance, but our community really wants to see their open spaces preserved. And that was a sort of stunning response to me. So that's all I have tonight.
Great. Thank you, Lori. Andrew?
Sure. So I was at the Eldridge Cemetery kind of maintenance and cleanup on Saturday. It was quite well attended. I don't know exactly how many folks, but it seemed like about 100 folks were there. A lot of people from the community, the scouts. I think the Rotary was there. There was the Old Cemetery Association, which has real expertise in repairing headstones and cleaning headstones, and that's really, it's beautiful grounds, and there was a tremendous amount of really good work done. The Department of Public Works was there and brought some heavy equipment to be able to reposition, some of the heaviest stones, and just amazing community effort, volunteer effort that morning. I also attended the Safe Routes to School Task Force meeting, where we reviewed the responses that we got from the community with respect to the Orchard School, the obstacles for children getting to school safely by walking or biking or other wheeled vehicles. All that, with the help of Tom and others, has been inputted into a GIS tool, where you can now on the map see which are the safe routes that have been identified, what are the obstacles that need to be addressed to make those routes safer. And that's just an incredible body of work, and incredible community support for that discussion. The next tasks for the task force will be to do the same work for the middle school and high school. At that point, we'll have completed all 5 schools. We also talked about how to transition the task force, with the thought being that the work will kind of fold under the bike and ped committee, and hopefully we'll discuss more details around that at a future agenda.
Thank you, Andrew. Elizabeth?
Thanks, Tim. I had a chance to attend the Planning Commission meeting, so got a preview to some of the work we're going to cover tonight on the revised LDRs, as well as kind of the interlinking between the LDR associated with bedrock removal and the nuisance ordinance, and we'll talk more about that later. The Housing Committee met and had a chance to validate policy priorities and strategies. I know at the last meeting I had asked that group have an opportunity to look at the one revision that council made, and they didn't have a chance to see that before the meeting, so they'll do that at their August meeting. One of the things that will show up at the next agenda for council will be a modification to the Housing Trust Fund, which might allow access to more projects that might qualify for Housing Trust dollars. There was a good discussion about the adjusted median income, and that will be covered a little bit in terms of education around how funded projects might look at adjusted median income. I also attended the Board of Abatement meeting, and the the Board of Civil Authority, and we were getting ready for various tax issues as well as the next elections, which thankfully we have a long time to prepare for those. On a personal note, a lot of the paving projects have gone on this summer, and one area that has been the bane of my biking existence, which is a modest little stretch on Dorset Heights that leads to Dorset Street. And I'm very thankful to our Department of Public Works for paving that little section, because it's very short, but it was very hard to ride on. You've probably ridden it before.
Oh, yeah, no.
And lastly, I also participated with Andrew on the cleanup with my 10-year-old granddaughter of the Eldridge Cemetery. And that was really educational and very interesting to see the dated stones and so forth. And I wanted to acknowledge the scout group here tonight, just with a couple of comments, if you don't mind. Who we have in the audience are representative young ladies and gentlemen from the Boys Troop 611, who has 39 scouts chartered by the South Burlington Rotary Club. And they represent towns of Burlington, South Hero, South Burlington, Stowe, Colchester, Richmond, and Cambridge. And the Girls Troop, which is 6110 and has 17 scouts. And there's also a Cub Scout pack, which has 31 scouts. And about 11 of these gentlemen and young women participated in the cemetery cleanup with Andrew and I and many others. So if you don't mind, maybe we could have them stand and thank them for their efforts.
Sure, please do.
Represented here by several of their troop leaders, and community service and participation in civic meetings is part of their charge in terms of becoming good citizens going forward. Very active troops, and they welcome new members to contact them. And I'll leave it at that. And that's my update. Thank you.
And in order to get your South Burlington City Council attendance badge, you have to stay here till 11 p.m. Okay? And no complaints either, all right? Tell your parents it was a great meeting, you had a great time. It was very, interesting, and you didn't have your phone. There you go. It couldn't be any better. So, welcome and thanks for coming. Thank you, Elizabeth. I also attended that Planning Commission meeting where they had a public hearing on the LDR changes that we will discuss later. Once again, I was in the dunk booth last Thursday at Veterans Memorial Park. This time it was for donations for the food shelf, and I don't know how much they raised. All I know is that I went in the water a lot. But it was a lot better that time because it was about 80 degrees out rather than 69 degrees, and there was no stiff north wind like it was 2 weeks before that. So it felt a lot better. I also attended the Board of Civil Authority meeting at which we discussed scheduling 3 appeals through the Board of Abatement at a future date, and also talked about election training and some other things. And on a personal note, I had a quick, last week I drove to Boston on Tuesday, came back Wednesday for a family member that needed something done on official business, and I can't believe the amount of traffic that we came across, especially in downtown Boston, especially in Brookline. They're going through the same thing we are, milling streets, in the middle of the financial district. It's really busy there. And then we also visited Portsmouth, New Hampshire for the weekend, able to go on the water. Let me tell you, that water in the ocean was colder than the water in the dunk booth tank, guaranteed. It's really cold, like 63. And if you go in and you try to ride a wave, you come out, your face hurts, right? So, but that's the ocean, and you got to love it. So that's all I have. Jesse?
Great, thank you. So a few updates from your staff team. So folks who have signed up for City News in the past, which is our twice a month newsletter on all things happening in South Burlington, has officially transitioned to our new Civic Plus platform, which is our website platform. This allows us many more options for changing what that newsletter looks like. It will also save us about $14,000 annually to not have two systems going. So you may have seen a different email come through last week. It's the same content, same authors, but now is called the South Burlington Bulletin to differentiate it from its past sibling of City News. Also want to share with the council and the community that we are bidding out a lot of construction projects right now. One of them was the Farrell Street Dog Park, which has been subject of conversation for many years. That bid came in much higher than budgeted, so we are working with the lowest bidder to try and get it into a project that we can fund this year. And we'll have an update for the council about that on August 4th. Public Works submitted our bicycle-friendly community program application recently. We got we're for a silver this year after getting bronze in 2021. And as part of that, we will be putting out a survey to the community about our biking culture in South Burlington. I encourage you to keep your eyes out for new banners coming to City Center. They're going to look very interesting, so keep your eyes out. We're into our last two SB nights out on Thursday nights, so this Thursday the 24th and next Thursday the 31st. Encourage folks to come out for a variety of reasons, not just the dunk tank, and connect with your friends and neighbors. And then finally want to share our appreciation to the South Burlington School District for partnering with the Recreation and Parks team to put in a disc golf course at the high school, which is a amenity we don't currently have. So that's all I have today. Thanks.
Thank you. That's a great idea, disc golf. Thanks. So now we'll go on to item 6, which is the consent agenda. We have item 6A, which is consider and sign disbursements, including the AP financial warrant. Item 6B, which is approve the award of the .gov migration work for the South Burlington Police Department to SimQuest as presented and allocate up to $33,000 of the general fund's unassigned fund balance for one-time implementation costs related to this project in fiscal year 2026. Item 6C, accept permanent and temporary easements for the construction of the Dorset Street shared use path between Old Cross Road and Sadie Lane on parcels 570-01630, 570-01626, and 570-01350. Item 6D, approve the minutes from April 7th, April 10th, April 21st, May 5th, May 7th, May 19th, June 2nd, June 5th, June 6th, June 16th, and June 18th. That's a lot of minutes that we're catching up on. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is everybody happy and willing to vote on this now? Okay, all those in favor say, oh, wait, go ahead.
Can I abstain from the minutes part of the agenda?
Sure. All right. So you can say that when we, are you ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain from the
Okay,
minutes
so Ann
part of
abstains. Right, thank you. Great, so it passes. We're done with item 6. Let's move on to item 7, which is receive and hold a first reading of the Land Development Regulations 25-01 to LDR 25-07 and official map OM 25-01 from the Planning Commission and warn a public hearing for September 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. with Paul Connor, Director of Planning and Zoning. Good evening, Paul.
Hi, folks. You're a few minutes ahead of our planning.
We are?
commission
Oh.
chair being
Oh,
here,
you're right.
So I don't know if there's anything that
well,
you wanted to.
It's not a public hearing, though.
I'm about 5 minutes to 7.
Okay. You we could go to Erica. We could go down to number 9.
Number 9, which is, okay, let's do that. So, council okay with that?
Let me shoot one email to our attorney
Okay.
so that he can
Oh,
join the Zoom
right.
meeting
Nope.
now.
Nope, never mind. We need that person. Never mind, can't do that.
Okay.
Could go to 10. Are you guys ready?
Chris would love that.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah, so let's jump down to item 10. We'll go back to 7 after that.
No, you can jump it if you need to.
So this is item 10, receive a recommendation on a capital assessment fee for fire expansion and possibly approve resolution 2025-15 related to such. This is Steve Locke, Deputy Fire Chief. Excuse me, Fire Chief.
Yeah, in this capacity tonight, as Fire Chief Stephen Locke, your Fire Chief, bringing forward to you tonight for the second time, Resolution 25-10, which recommends the establishment of a capital assessment fee to be charged on those who issue either receive permits and permits and retro registry. Gosh, the word is escaping me, for within the fire department. So as we registrations. That is the word we're looking for. Thank you. As we have discussed last time when we were going through the conversation about adding the rental registry team about the lack of space. So the proposal here is to, this would be a proposal to put a fee in place that would allow for the funding to occur to pay for the addition to a fire station that would then house the entire prevention/rental registry team. When we were together last time, you asked me to bring you back some differing options. So again, we still kept there's three components to this. First is a 5% assessment on the rental registries. So that would be an additional $75 on a short-term rental. So that's currently you pay if you register a short-term rental, that costs you currently $1,500. That would be an additional $75 on that. $77.50 on a long-term rental, and $1.25 on a unit that is marked permanently affordable. So that's the first fee. The second fee would be a 5% surcharge on all non-construction permits. So that's for a sprinkler system, a tent, a kitchen hood system. So since February 1st, when we went live with a new permitting system, we've issued 304 permits, and that surcharge added to those would be on average $9.04 that 5% would cost on average. That's the second leg. The third leg is where the majority of the revenue for this proposal would come from, and that is on construction permits. So if you remember last time I was here, I had proposed a 0.5% surcharge on this capital assessment fee on all our construction projects with a cap of $20,000. You had asked me to go back and look at some differing options. So we've had about 600 permits that we looked at since 2018. 89% of those were for less than $1 million. So we had talked about, do we exempt small projects? The problem is the vast majority of these are small projects less than $1 million. So instead of doing that, we would propose that you implement a fee of 1/4%, so half of what we had previously recommended to you, but raise the cap to $45,000. So just a few examples. On a $20,000 kitchen remodel, you would pay a $50 fee. On a $100,000 renovation, perhaps to your home, that's a $250 fee. And on a $480,000 new construction of a home, which is on average what we receive in this community we receive about 32 permits a year for single family homes. And on average, the builders declare that to be the cost of construction, about $480,000. They would pay $1,200 fee for this service. We did raise the cap, or proposing to raise the cap to $45,000 for a total fee, and that would be an $18 million project that would hit the cap. Since of those 600 permits that I talk about, only 10 of those since 2018 would have hit the cap. So there are some projects, those are the betas, the renovations at the airport, that hit that $18 million cap, and that's what that would look like. We believe over those three buckets, that will generate about $175,000 a year, and that would be enough, working with finance, to be able to service the debt on the cost of construction. So that's high level, and trying not to regurgitate back about the reasoning and all that that we talked about last time. And so we would ask for your support for that resolution 25-10.
And just to reiterate that once the fire station addition is fully paid for, then if that, then it sunsets, right?
Correct. The resolution calls it the fee would sunset once the debt is paid for, and there would be nothing that would prohibit you from using other monies to pay that off early, or right. If it got while we're projecting a 10-year payback, that may occur earlier.
So we could sunset this earlier than usual if other monies were used.
Correct.
It's a good thing to know.
And Steve, remind me what the cap was in the first proposal?
20,000.
But that was with a 0.5%.
Was it with a 0.5%? So
How many properties were over $1 million, did you say?
10
10. Okay.
since 2018.
Yeah. So it's
10 would have hit the cap.
10 would have hit the cap.
Yep.
Right. Council discussion?
I just have a question, Steve, for the lower end of the construction. What with the fees that we passed last meeting, and with these new proposed fees, the last adding them together because I don't remember what the fees were. What would be the impact on 100,000 or less?
So, goodness gracious, I should have done that math. So your fee is $8,500 per 10,000. I'd have to do the math. So sorry, it's I don't have that math in front of me. I'm going to misspeak, but it's 0.0085 times the cost of construction. So can you just do the math for me so I don't get it wrong?
For 10,000?
100,000. $850 is what the no, it'd be $8,500 on a $100,000 project. Your fee would be $8,500. I think
Paul, you seem to you calculate these fees a lot.
It's 8.5 cents per thousand.
0.0085 times
I think that's the 850.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope so.
Because it's less than 1%.
Yeah, it's less than 1%.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
other questions from council? So we have a resolution in front of us that we could have a motion. Do we want to read out the resolution? Is that, no? Okay. Can we have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it's unanimous. Thank you very much. We're done with number 10. Are we ready to go back to number 7 now? All the 10Ds are here? All right.
Oops.
Oh, no, they can't go now. This is the best part. Thank you for coming. Got to be some diehards that want to stay for this. All right. Good evening, Jessica and Paul again. Jessica, first time.
Yes, thank you for you rearranged, which I appreciate. Thank you. Well, Paul and I are here to give you the first reading of proposed amendments to the land development regulations. I am Jessica Luisos, the Planning Commission Chair.
Hi, folks. Paul Connor, Director of Planning and Zoning. Thanks for having us.
Okay, so I think the next slide gives us a little overview of what we're going to be talking about and passing on to you. We have in the Planning Commission gone through quite a bit of review on a series of amendments to both land development regulations. You can see the list of the general topics on the left, as well as a change to the official map, which is a separate document. And for each of the amendments, although there's multiple things included, we've kind of grouped them by topic, as you see in the list. And then there's also, those are actually active links that go to a spotlight for each of those topic areas, which describe kind of the specifics of those and have been available for the public kind of through our hearing process as well. And we have been working on these since last fall. And you can see the general overview of the timeline there. So we've already had a public hearing and outreach at the Planning Commission level, and tonight's the first reading. So The idea being that you would then go on to set your public hearing kind of after this first reading. So we're going to talk a little bit about the overview of the why on each of these different proposed amendments. One of the bigger ones is an update to the form-based code. This is the type of code that we have specifically here in City Center and some of the surrounding areas. And kind of the big picture why is that we are seeing a lot of the new buildings in this area, in the form-based code area, being built very similarly, a lot of sameness. And we'd gotten some feedback that that wasn't really the original intention, so we dove back in to figure out kind of what was going on. Why were we getting things that looked very similar? We'd also gotten feedback from the development community that some of the regulations were very narrow. There wasn't a lot of room for flexibility and creativity. So really to we say it right there, to really go for a successful build out of our city center and, get that variety that we originally envisioned, kind of respond to some of those kind of very narrow points in our regulations that were causing some problems with the development community, kind of meeting those standards. We have this set of updates that a lot of the changes are relatively minor, kind of adjusting some of the spacing and glazing, building break spacing, and with the real goal of being able to provide some variety in both how things look and feel, specifically from the pedestrian street level. So you can see some of the examples there on the slide. Because we wanted to really have a better understanding of what these changes might look like, we had some architects kind of give us some information about like what we think these new changes might look like. And you can see they're all kind of from the street level, kind of looking up, as someone walking or kind of moving through the space would kind of envision or, experience the buildings. I think that's an overview. We also have some designation changes on the map related to the form-based code area that are shown here, along with some of the reasoning behind them. One of the things that we had originally envisioned back at the beginning of form-based code was that we really liked the idea that the T districts, the transit districts, could be expanded in the future. Like as we started to see our T5 district, the more denser area developed, it'd be easy to kind of expand that to a larger area, which is what you're seeing in the kind of green area there along Dorset Street, extending that more denser development and mixed use a little further south. We also are showing a similar upgraded area from T3 plus to T4 over on Heinsberg Road at the Market Street intersection there. And let's see, at the top of the page there, it's kind of a light blue. We have an area near the Doubletree that's changing to a T district, which is currently a high-scale mixed-use area.
What area is going from T3 plus to T3?
I can answer that one. That is a very minor little technical change where the line goes down the middle of the street. And so the east side of Heinsberg Road is T3, which is a lower scale. The west side was T3 plus. Since the west side is becoming T4, it didn't make sense to have a little narrow strip that is literally the street. So it's just bringing the street into what was adjacent to it, but being technically correct.
Should we ask questions as we go, or wait till the end? What do you think is the best thing to do here? Because I do have a question about this page too.
I kind of would like to do it as we go along because to make a long list and then
Okay.
go back to things.
Yeah.
I mean, once it's fresh in our mind.
Could I suggest a small tweak to that, which is maybe by topic. So there's one more slide on the form-based
Okay.
code.
Yeah.
And then that'll wrap up the presentation of form-based code, and you
Okay.
can hit any. And then we can.
Sure.
It's only 2 or 3 slides each. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds great. So we did some visualizations of what some increased building heights might look like in the transect 5 and 4. You can see a breakdown of both kind of in words what that would look like, increasing our minimum heights from 2 to 3 stories in our T5 district, and increasing our number of stories maximum from 6 stories to 12 stories. This is a big change in the height. So we did, and this is only one example of the different visualizations that we did to kind of look at what this could look like. And, you know, you can see that the buildings that we have there are very much Lego-like. And part of that was on purpose because we don't know exactly what the ultimate buildings might look like. It was really a visual exercise on massing to get a sense of, like, compared to the existing buildings that are out there, what is the general size, how might that feel, and you know, so we know it's blocky, but it's like it was able to give us kind of a sense of what it might look like. And then each of the buildings, I know it's small writing, but it does call out kind of the specifics about the number of stories and the assumptions that went into each of, or, you know, the few that are called out there. Do you have anything to add?
Just to back to the context, just to note that we've seen a lot of success so far in the first 10 years of the form-based code. 20 buildings have been built in that form-based code, and as we look to the future and we look to what is remaining in the city center area, it's a little bit of a different character than the largely green field that we've had along here. So some of the amendments, we're making sure that it's nimble enough to deal with sites where there's a lot more infill, and, you know, with a close eye to the TIF goals that the city has of making sure that we have a successful build out over the coming years.
So that was the first section on form-based code. If you had questions on those pieces.
So can we skip back to that slide? I have some questions about the height, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding the high scale mixed use change to T4. And in particular, would it be possible, because I'm looking at our map viewer, which shows the resources on what I think is that piece, and I think I'm looking at wetlands and habitat block on a big chunk of that parcel. If I'm looking at this correct, can we pull that up and just look at that together?
Sure. Just a second, as soon as the computer agrees with me.
And I guess for some people who may not know, we have a whole separate section on environmental protections, including some of the resources that Andrew just said, and those layer on top of the zoning. So each of these zones might be zoned a certain way, but you would also need to meet the environmental protection regulations as well.
Okay. Go ahead. It should be.
And can you just pull up the overlay districts, Paul, so we see the resources? Wetlands and overlay. I don't we need the zoning, because it'll be confusing.
All right.
And the wetland, please?
Yep. So that. There you go.
So, and just so I'm making sure that I know what I'm looking at, which is the section on here that's proposed to be 14-story buildings?
So the 14-story buildings would be the T5 area.
I thought T4?
T4 is closer to 12 stories.
Oh, did the T? It says 14 on the Transact 4, 5 to 14. Was that a mistake then?
On which?
On the PowerPoint?
On the PowerPoint, it says 14.
I thought it said 12, which is what I just read. I wonder if we have a... There, okay, this is actually...
Oops.
That
That
is a
is my
typo.
mistake.
So it's five to 12?
T4 should be 6 to 12 stories, 135 feet max. T5 is the 5 to is goes to 14 stories and 155 feet. My
Okay,
apologies,
so fine. So 12-story buildings on this piece. So where would they be proposed to go? I just want to make sure I'm looking at
So
the
on a
same thing.
property like this, when you're talking specifically about the former high-scale mixed-use area,
Yeah.
so on a property like this, as Jessica alluded to, the habitat block overlay district still applies.
Sure.
And so the eligible area would essentially, the habitat block lines up with the back of the parking lot. So there's a large parking lot behind the DoubleTree today. So that area back there would be
Eligible for a
currently
12-story
eligible
building.
for everything allowed in high-scale mixed use, would be eligible for the
And then another 12-story building in the other parking lot back there potentially? Is that the thought?
the other one is not in that district. So this orange line here,
Oh, the orange line. Okay.
that's the end of the high-scale mixed-use district.
So the change really allows a 12-story building in that parking lot.
It allows a 12-story building in that parking lot. It could conceivably also allow it. That zoning change also is here. This is what's known as the rugby field at UVM. So it would also apply here because this is also that district, the high-scale mixed use.
So for me personally, it feels to put a 12-story building next to that habitat block like just inappropriate and just too much for me. It just doesn't really feel like appropriate zoning. Like I just, like I guess the way I would see it is you kind of step down, and as you approach a natural resource area, you should have like, smaller scale development. So it just feels, I guess, doesn't feel good to me.
Could maybe you explain to those of us who are not planners, what's the value and what's in terms of the jump between 5 to 14 or
When you
I
say
mean-
the value, do you mean what's
well, I mean,
how does the
we're-
city
we're-
benefit from it?
the city and
Sure.
yeah,
So, I mean, Jessica, feel free to jump in. But broadly speaking, we are looking to what's the long term for the city. We've established all of the efforts that we've done in our city center area to bring in infrastructure, to do all the programming that's taking place. We're looking to see, how do we focus the need for our future housing. We have our housing targets that have come down from the state, and we're looking to say how do we, not just South Burlington, but communities like us, do thoughtful allowances for development in areas where the infrastructure is in place. And when we look in South Burlington, we look at the approximately 250 acres that is the city center area, on the scale of 10,000 acres for the city, we say this is our area of concentrated activity. We talked with the Planning Commission about different examples of what additional height could look like, what other communities around the country do in terms of, what do tall buildings look like, and this was a number that sort of hit the small to mid-range cities having higher density.
you have some T4 is 12, T5 is 14.
That's
I mean,
correct.
what about 8 and 10? I mean, this is, I'm not criticizing and I'm not suggesting. I'm just trying to understand.
We actually had that discussion at the Planning Commission level. Like, I think that this was one of the areas where there was discussion, and some commissioners were like, well, maybe 8's enough. Maybe 10's enough. And ultimately, this is one of the spots where we did have a split vote within, but ultimately the whole package that came in front of you, we unanimously put forward. So, I think if you, with any of these amendments, want to have continued discussion on a topic, you're more than welcome to at your level. We didn't get any public feedback on the number of stories. It was something that I think, based on our discussion, we were like, well, let's see what the public says. And it was something that we actually wound up not getting specific feedback on. There are other topics in here where we did get quite a bit of feedback on. So, I mean, part of what we were seeing in the visualization is by the time you get above a certain number of stories where a pedestrian is really noticing the difference, you know, it seems like the difference between 8 and 12 was maybe above where someone walking along the street was noticing that difference. So that was where we wound up at for public comment, and, you know,
And got none.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
Just a couple of other quick notes on that. One, some of the specific feedback that the commission got was that it would be important to have a step back after around the 5th story because of that human experience. And so anything above I think it says anything above the 5th story for a building that is more than 5 stories needs to step back so that that human level experience feels comfortable. We did get some feedback on the professional end that things that are a minor increase over what we currently allow of 6 would not likely take place. The sort of economies of construction, a couple of stories above 6, you sort of have to do all the infrastructure of a tall building and the cost of that. And so that we got some feedback that likely wouldn't result in too much. And then lastly, as one other little data point, or I guess not so little, but in Burlington, the City Place buildings are 11 stories. So in terms of sort of context of not necessarily building massing, but height, that's an example in our area being built.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation.
Can I just want to continue. So I have the same question that you had about building height, but just to go back to the area that's proposed to be rezoned T4, what was the thinking there on the planning commission?
I think part of it is that we have been having some really good success with the T districts, and it's bringing it kind of in line with the zoning adjacent to it. Is a big part of it.
And I'd say one correction to my earlier statement, Councillor Chalnick, the line is actually it is north of that upper parking lot. So my mistake.
So both parking lots would be eligible for 12-story buildings.
Yeah. The other reason for bringing this in was originally this whole area that is blue on this map, the T4, was in what used to be called the Commercial 1 Residential 12 District. When the form-based code was adopted in 2016, these 2 orange parcels were left out because they're owned by UVM, and it was another level of complexity at that time to bring UVM into a whole conversation about that. As UVM has had more opportunity to think about it, and we approached them and discussed the possibility of sort of taking these remaining outlier parcels and bringing them into the form-based code, because that's all that's left in this area of the old district. They were in support of that. So it's a tidy up as well.
And what's the height limit for high-scale mixed use?
7 stories.
7.
Jesse, you have a comment? Okay, all right. But my only comment is that if you have form-based codes and you're starting to boost the heights, if you want a dense urban core, and we think we have an urban core, that's one way to make it denser. So if you can't go out, you got to go up. Famous words of Joe Larkin, or John Larkin, excuse me. And I think that this is the opportunity to do that. And we see this massing that's happening in downtown Burlington. This is the next spot where it could happen. Doesn't mean it will, but it can happen if we don't allow it. So.
Okay, now can I make a comment?
Excuse me?
Now can I make my comment?
Yeah.
So I also think, and this was not part of I didn't participate in the planning commission conversation, so this is not Jessica, this is staff talking. When Paul and I and others were talking about what was coming out of these zoning conversations, one of the things we were trying to think about that the council talked about with the regional housing targets was looking at this as a region, not just within our city borders. So while I understand what the distinction you're making, Andrew, with the habitat block, it is also the corridor into our most densely populated city. And when we think about 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road, how regionally our public transit lines, commuting lines, bike ped lines going to move across to urban cores, and thinking about them as tying them together a little bit.
And I'll just add to the conversation that when I think about the housing targets that have been set for our region, I think about the open space responses around keeping spaces open. I think vertical is one of the few options we have to meet our housing targets and maintain the open spaces that are important to us.
I guess
I don't know. I was looking for a 20-story building somewhere.
and I
I will
would
say 14 feels too high to me personally.
Yeah.
It feels really urban, and I understand. I mean, I think, as people know, I'm extremely sensitive to the climate change aspects of all this, and vertical buildings are the most efficient way to live for sure. But having 14-story buildings massed, as shown in that picture, all along Dorset Street, just to me, it feels too much, too urban.
I have seen in communities where there are very tall buildings next to totally undeveloped land.
And it looks
And it can-
terrible.
Well, that's a matter of judgment, I guess.
It is.
What I see is people in those buildings being able to have access to open space, and providing the housing for the people that need to be there in a way that doesn't just eat up the land.
But we can do both. I remember Paul saying that the targets that CSRP asks us to achieve would be achievable under current zoning, right? So we don't necessarily need to build to 14 stories to get there, right? If I'm recalling correctly.
I believe what I said was with the anticipated form-based code changes. Now, we have not run it to say whether a 8 or a 9 or a 12-story building, we didn't get that to that level of depth. So, but just to say what I had said.
Let's move on because you've got a lot more.
Yeah.
Go.
So I guess the one thing I would just add is that, I think the debate about the exact number is perfectly fine, but having some increase of multiple stories, we feel like is important in this area where you do have the infrastructure, you do have the means. We're creating a walkable environment. And to really start to address some of the affordability pieces, which I didn't specifically mention, but that was a part of the thinking with the heights. So the next topic is the official map changes. This is specific to the city center area. That's why the map is zoomed into this area. In this proposed change, we aren't looking at changes outside of this area. And the goals here really are to support the build out of city center and create the connectivity that we need to move both vehicles and pedestrians and bikers through city center. So you'll see, with a comparison to the previous official map in this area, it does add specific connections through that have been informed by some circulation studies that we've done with transportation specialists, as well as it breaks down the different streets into primary, secondary, and tertiary. And it's all color coded there, with the idea then that pairs with the other regulations to show what kind of streetscape would be expected, what kind of frontage, and really pair the buildings and the streetscape with the type of street that we're having, and having us make that choice as a city rather than making choices kind of as projects might come forward in the future. There's also some really specific updates around the planned bridge over 89 for bike pedestrians, and really making sure that the connections on both sides of the interstate are detailed on here to make that connection happen across the bridge. And I think there's just one slide on there, so I don't know if there's...
I had a question on that map. And it was around the extension of Garden Street. and where Garden Street goes to Midas. And my question, I know that we already have right-of-ways around the north side of 80 Midas Drive, but as I looked at the map and look at how far Midas Drive goes, I question why Garden Street doesn't go south of 80 Market Street or 80 Midas Drive between the building and the stormwater pond that's there. And it would make a much more direct route for the road, and it would not disturb the woodland area that's there. So I assume there's a good reason, but I wanted to hear it.
So, the answer to that predates me, which is something that I very rarely say any longer, having been here 17 years next week. But the city did a land swap back in about 2005 to create that ability for the stormwater, and that land swap created this condition. There isn't a sufficient amount of room between the stormwater pond and 80 Midas to fit that road. That land swap was done specifically to put that road north of there. I can't say the why. I just know that it was intentional at that time.
When I looked at, I understand that. I looked at 80, and they've got parking on the south side of their building, and where we're going north of the building is a big parking area. If their parking area switched, there would be enough room. So I'm throwing it out because as we're trying to protect the unbuilt areas and have a road that goes directly, if there were the opportunity to make that change, it would significantly streamline that connection and reduce the amount of pervious surface going over undisturbed land.
So I think that project would become one where you would have a conversation with through Jesse with the Public Works Department and the capital projects. I'd say in this case the official map is following the lead of the intended designs, and if that's something, I guess I'd throw that back to Jesse. If that's something council wants to discuss, then
wanted to bring that one up. Sorry, Jesse.
Okay, the next topic is a little more zoning district boundary changes. These are, we consider this to be pretty much cleanup.
Before you go on, there were two city maps that you presented.
One
The official city
official
map.
map.
Yeah, and I had a comment about the official city map
Oh, okay.
also.
This one?
Not just this one. And you had the orange balloon or the blue balloons around the specific areas.
this one here.
No, in the packet it's the full citywide map.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
And you have the specific call outs for the bubbling on the map. And one bubble that you don't have that I would love to see on here is the bubble for the property across from City Hall, where we're talking about trying to put City Hall Park. And the conversation has been had here in the open space master planning process. That was another issue that was brought up. And if we have it on our master plan, it gives us weight in what we're doing. If we don't have it on there, we don't have that. And so I was questioning, can we add a bubble on the property that's across the street here that we have highlighted as a location for the city center park?
I agree with you completely.
And
Yeah,
I think that
I would add even a placeholder on the map that shows that.
just
Or a generic placeholder saying somewhere in the city center area.
Well, so the official map is a legal regulatory document. So you can have planning maps like the Parks and Open Space Master Plan. You are more than welcome. It is absolutely a tool that the official map can be used to put any public facility, including parks. Functionally, what that does is if you if you place a public infrastructure, whether it's a park or a water tower or whatever it might be, on a piece of land, either the entirety or a portion of it, that becomes essentially it's an additional layer of zoning. And so the function of that is that if something comes in, a proposed development in front of the city, whether the DRB or smaller one administrative, then the development has to accommodate that infrastructure. And if for whatever reason they choose not to, that becomes a automatic denial of that project, and it kicks it to you for 120 days to choose to whether you choose to initiate acquisition of the property.
That's,
And then if you don't, then it goes back. So it's a very powerful tool, but you do have to your question, Councilor Barrett, you have to identify the exact parcel because it is a legal restriction on those parcels. You can choose more than one, but for each one of them, it becomes a restriction.
that's why I think it's really important for us to do this.
Sounds like
Because
the right tool.
we've identified that
I think we should do
lot.
that.
I disagree. Not
We-
at this point.
We've identified that lot as a specific location that we want to.
So, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
But we are
So-
talking about this
Well, we
map.
are, because that map is something that we're talking
We're
about.
talking about the
approving.
map. That's what's on before us right now.
So, but you want to add something to that map that's not there
Isn't the same
now.
map?
I want to.
Can we go back to the official map?
This map is a map that we're
Oh,
talking
sorry.
about
Right.
approving.
Right, but you want to add something to the map that they don't have right now.
That's correct.
Right. So, but I don't think it's appropriate to add that. We haven't had enough discussion about that particular item, because I don't think we have consensus on the council about where this open space is supposed to occur in city center. We've had presentations by consultants. We were given a couple of parcels to look at. I know you have opinions. I have a different opinion, so
But we have instructed staff to have conversations with the owner of that property.
I haven't had a report on that yet.
We haven't had a report on it, but we've directed them to do
Right,
that.
but I don't want to ask them to put that on the map right now for that, because we don't have enough information yet. So you just can't
Yeah, we
put that
can-
on
we
the
can
map just
disagree.
because you feel like doing it. I mean, you've got to have there has to be a better process to get to that point. It should have been included in their process for evaluation.
I
Obviously,
don't
it's not.
disagree with that, so I'm suggesting that it be considered.
You can consider it for the next round of LDRs if you want, but not for this round. I mean, that's my opinion,
I
because
thought the reason we reviewed this was so that we could give input to the process and talk about things that we were concerned about.
you
And
can.
I'm concerned about this, and I would like to say it's something that I think would be valuable for our city to have added to our city map. And I hear there's another person with that same opinion. I don't know how many, and I heard that Elizabeth was concerned about it. So how do we deal with there being a difference of opinion here?
That's a good question, and I think I'd ask the planning and zoning director to give some opinion on that.
But
Give us
just in
some
terms of the difference of opinion, I mean, we have taken, I think, some votes on this where there were at least three to go forward with a view to
To that property.
for that property to be a city park, right? And I agree with Lori that the regulatory tool that Paul just mentioned would be a nice tool for us to have for that purpose.
Do you want me to weigh in?
Want to chime in?
Sure. So, without disclosing negotiation positions taking place in executive session, you have directed us to explore a partnership purchase option with several property owners, and we are doing that, and you will hear an update on that at your next meeting. It is I think what Paul was trying to articulate is there's a stark difference between saying, can you in partnership work with a property owner to get a project done versus requiring a new layer of zoning in your official documents. And I think, Paul, correct me if I'm not speaking for you correctly, but I think that was the differentiation that we saw in our minds. Is it's one thing for you to say to us, go explore what could happen on a variety of parcels in partnership versus say thou shall do or the city shall do on through a regulatory document. That's how I would interpret the difference.
It's
Well, what I
premature
should-
to do what you want to do. It's also imprudent, I think, at this point. I think I just sit and wait on it, and we'll get to there when we get there.
I hear that. My concern is, and maybe it's, this is a regulatory tool, and I don't see how it doesn't just strengthen our opportunities rather than weaken them.
It could weaken our position in some ways by having that on there.
Okay.
That's my fear. So they have a lot to present tonight, and this is a minor item in my mind. I'd like to move on. I know,
we've-
thank you, but you're not allowed to give public comment until we say you can, so this is not the time. Yeah, I know the council's having a discussion right now. You'll have your chance later, okay? Please.
So the zoning district changes, so we have two ones that we consider to be mainly cleanup. The Joy Drive area parcels were designated as the low-scale neighborhood in our last round of changes. And, you know, it came to our attention that it makes more sense based on what's actually there right now to be the high-scale mixed use. So that's one of the proposed changes.
And specifically in that instance where you're seeing the arrow pointing to is Rice High School, in the old zoning, educational facility was a conditional use in the R4 district. Moving this over to low scale neighborhood, the school became a nonconformity, meaning that they could not expand in any form. The commission looked at a couple of different options here. One would be to say allow schools in throughout the low scale neighborhood, but that's a lot of parts of the city now. Or change the district where the one school that exists in the low scale neighborhood to something that is more appropriate to its scale. And then it also adds the Meadowbrook apartments, which is also more the scale of medium or high scale neighborhoods. So that's the reason for that one.
Yeah. And the next one is really correcting an error. So, you know, we had done some pretty large consolidation of the residential zoning not long ago. So these are just what I see as kind of two corrections, basically, of when we had made those changes. So this is our next topic, the table of uses. As I said, we had done some major work on the residential districts in the past. So this is our big dive into the other uses, to the commercial ones. So we had a giant table of many different, very, very specific uses. And the idea here is that we're actually just moving to a more nimble system and streamlining the review by creating new, more like consolidated commercial use categories where many of the different things that we now are calling out as different would be in kind of one use, with the idea being that the scale, the type of impacts to the surrounding areas, the type of activities going on there would be similar in there, and without having to have as many different specific difference. So we have these are the uses that would still continue to be regulated separately, in addition to all the residential uses. So if it's on this list, it does continue to have a specific use in the table with its own definitions. A lot of these are ones that have specific state designations, and really because of their state designation, makes sense for us to continue to have separately. You'll see, I mean, almost all of the things on this list have that kind of state rules. If it's not one of these, then we have this very fun chart which can help someone give an idea as to which of the remaining kind of consolidated uses that you might have. So this is something we were kind of using internally. This isn't actually going to be in the this isn't in the LDRs, but it's a way for all of us to kind of picture, you know, how someone might go about figuring out where they fit.
Right. So you don't have to memorize this chart, but this is as close to fun as use regulations gets.
Yes.
So we thought we'd just share it.
We usually use tables. So just as an example, we pulled one out to give an example of what this might look like, or what it does look like. There's some description of the characteristics. So this one's the consumer-facing commercial. In the blue box, you can see all the things that are currently separate uses in the LDRs that would be consolidated into this one use, and the kinds of things. You can picture that a lot of these might have the same number of cars coming and going, the same types of parking, the same type of general size. For most of these, we do have a difference in scale, which is going to continue to be regulated separately. You can see the scale, the small, medium, and large sizing. So there might be restrictions for some things that are large that might not have a restriction if it's a small consumer-facing commercial.
This looks like a bit of a dry subject, but from the internal workings, this is a really big deal. Whenever there's a business or a building that wants to change a business, currently outside a city center, they have to come and they have to get a site plan review, they have to get approval, they have to get all sorts of steps just to change from a pet groomer to a retail sales. And functionally, they're very, very similar. We've had 10 years of experience now in our city center form-based code where it's even more high level than this, and we've really seen only upside from doing this. And so it's really a really neat, I think, puts us right at the front of communities that are trying to be nimble and really thinking about like what are the functional differences between uses, and importantly, not being defining by the things that are on this list. So this invites creativity as well for somebody who comes up with a new idea that we've never heard of before. Because then we can regulate it by its characteristic, not its definition of is it pet grooming or is it, who knows what.
It's a lot more flexible.
It's a lot more flexible, and it retains the important features of still defining by areas of the city the appropriate functions and scales of those functions.
Yeah. I like this part.
So very similar. So most of that was consolidation. We do have a few functional changes to really support some things that we were hearing would be helpful for our commercial businesses, especially in the industrial areas. So it's very similar to the last kind of consolidation of uses, but it does propose to allow in some commercial areas some, things that we've been hearing would be helpful to support our existing businesses, including temporary accommodations in a limited way, which is something that we've heard would be helpful. So that group of slides is kind of the topics related to uses. If anyone has any
Can we go
thoughts.
back and ask about the temporary accommodations and what the rules are about? Do you have rules for that, or?
Yeah, so the draft would allow accommodations. So when we say temporary accommodations, we just mean the term is accommodations now. So it's not a apartment or a home, a permanent one, but it's anything short of that. It would allow it in the mixed industrial commercial district with certain restrictions. It needs to be on the same lot as a principal structure that is already approved as I believe it's a medium scale general commercial, and I believe it is capped at 60 rooms, something like that.
Yeah.
So the idea is really that it is trying to create a little bit of flexibility that can be on multiple different parcels, but it needs to be something that is linked to the purpose for why the business park is there, and not become a place where a bunch of airport-related accommodations that are just seeing an opportunity to buy a piece of land are because they're near an airport. This really is connected more to the business park itself, and understanding that being on the same lot therefore means it doesn't have to be the same ownership, but it means that there's a synergy in there. I think the commission spent a fair amount of time sort of going around on this. The original request came from OnLogic to do something like this. The commission looked at a couple of different examples, including being a directly subsidiary use, and that really didn't make sense because if OnLogic moves into a bigger building, then what happens to this facility? They looked at other forms of restrictions and ultimately found that this was a pretty good place for it to land for now. I think the commission also acknowledged that you're right at the back end of an economic development strategic plan, and you might over the next couple of years want to do some other work in this area, doing something like an innovation district, and that might include this. It might evolve from this, and so it's not the end of the conversation in this area. But this was where the commission landed, and
Yeah, and we did get specific input from the Economic Development Committee as well, and took that into consideration after their discussions and their recommendations.
And rental registry rules would apply to those units, right?
No, because these would be accommodations. They wouldn't be, well, the short-term rental part of it would if it applied, but really this is more hotel rooms or
Okay.
extended stay hotels,
Okay.
which would fall under commercial activities.
Okay.
I guess short-term rentals wouldn't apply because they wouldn't be residential uses, so they're not residential.
Okay.
Is this intended to address any like temporary workforce?
Yes, that was the original request from OnLogic and also the folks at Technology Park was helping to both have their clients but also their temporary workforces for a few months. And as I said, the staff and the commission looked at a few different options about how to tie it very closely to that. And in the end, the recommendation was not to be so precisely restrictive to be only temporary workforce, because in the low season they may want to rent it to have somebody else make use of it, and so finding this, connecting it to a parcel was
And
sort
was
of the sweet spot
was
of
the
that.
scale of that in line with what these organizations' expectations were? I mean, I was thinking about the per diem nursing staff at the hospital for a long time, and that was a substantial employee group that I think the cap that you were talking about would not have accommodated.
Right. This is not the largest of hotels or apartments out there. 60, I think the number is 60, or at least the scale of what 60 would be in terms of rooms. That's trying to find the sweet spot of meeting an employee need, but not becoming its own gravitational pull of a major hotel chain saying, let's locate here for tourism in the greater Chittenden County area, because then that's pulling away from that same purpose. So we communicated, and I believe Mike Biama from Technology Park Partners participated in specifically and was generally feeling good about the numbers.
So the 3 hotels that are within 1 mile of OnLogic don't meet their needs.
We got the request.
There's
Yeah.
all of Williston Road. There's the one across, what is it, on the corner here, and there's tons.
Right. What they had talked about was and I'm only speaking for their specific thing.
Yeah,
The
no,
commission, of course, looked more
you used
broadly.
as an example, so I'm thinking that's
So in their
likely
example, what
gonna
they were
happen.
thinking about is something that is not, it's more than a hotel. It's a little bit more like the Green Mountain Suites, where somebody might stay on contract for a few months and live there. And so they were thinking about something that is more than a hotel room. When staff looked at this and when the commission looked at it, one of the very first questions was, should we make this extended stay hotel only versus regular hotel? And honestly, from the research that we've been doing, the lines between those in general are blurring dramatically. People have gotten so used to staying in Airbnbs whenever they travel somewhere that now they might want a kitchen even for overnight. And so the market is evolving, and so the artificial lines that we used to draw between a classic hotel room and a hotel room with a kitchen are becoming so blurred that we couldn't really divide them out. So that's how this came. But certainly it was an active conversation, and I think your note of not all commissioners agreed on all items was also reflected in this conversation. There is certainly a lot of hotel rooms right in city center too, and some of the balance here was not wanting to be careful not to draw the energy of the city away from city center.
Yeah.
Because that's the balance here.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, next topic here is bedrock removal. So we have, I guess, just the context. So we are only looking at the land development regulation related, noise nuisance related with bedrock removal. There is separately the noise ordinance, which you'll be seeing separately, or maybe have seen separately. So the idea is that this would establish specific standards for bedrock removal in conjunction with when development is happening, and really clarifies the difference between the nuisance ordinance and performance standards, which are already in the land development regulations related to noise. So this includes some specific language. This is one of the areas where we got a lot of public feedback. And following public feedback, we have forwarded you, I guess, what we consider to be like a first draft. This is one of the spots where we are interested in kind of going back and adding some additional teeth to it and really figuring out like how we could potentially add some more specific numbers. There's a lot of flexibility in the development review board being able to evaluate a proposal that's brought in front of them and try to balance the maybe some louder bedrock removal for a much shorter period of time with a less loud, longer period of time. So it's one of the things that we were thinking about with the bedrock removal is depending on what your method is, it might have a different type of impact based on length of time as well. So, you know, the version in front of you does include, you know, the DRB being able to kind of weigh in on that or hire an outside kind of evaluation, a technical evaluation. We have talked about adding kind of a revisit of this topic to our work plan to maybe try to think about decibel levels and things like that that could be added, but felt like it was a topic that is timely and we didn't want to just completely hold it back and not have anything to bring forward to you.
And if I can just tell me if I'm putting words in your mouth here, but when you described it as a first draft, your recommendation was to bring it forward and adopt it, but also for the commission to maybe have a second iteration of it that comes forward at sometime in the future.
I wasn't clear about that. We think adopting this is a good idea. And then if we take the time to look further, we can add additional restrictions.
So this is brand new, right? Has never been in the LDRs before.
Correct.
Attempts to place some controls on the creation of noise and the removal of bedrock, right? Makes a good stab at that. Allows for shorter duration that has to be tolerated because it's the most expedient way to do it, and then has boundaries about longer term problems and how they would be dealt with using, you know, blasting and whatnot. I think this is a good first attempt at this, and I think what we're trying to do is to take into account the experience of the neighbors on Golf Course Road back in 2020 when they had a whole summer's worth of hydraulic, you know, jackhammering, and that was not fun for all those neighbors, and I acknowledge it. And this makes an attempt to deal with that, keeping in mind that, you know, for example, outside City Hall, you know, I mean, the developer had to demolish a whole sidewalk and realigning the intersection outside, and they were chipping away all day long, and that's necessary in order to do that. You can't blast that, right? So I think this is good first.
Yeah, Tim, that's a good example. I just wanted to flag that one. In City Center, actually not even with the sidewalk, where the building that's under construction now, the third building on the south side of Market Street, partway through construction, they discovered some ledge in there that they did some hydraulic jackhammering on, and the outlines of these same standards that are in here, staff went through a process with the application informally with the applicant on that, and they did a evaluation of different methods of how could they get rid of it. The first thing that they did was to squeeze a few extra inches of not having to remove any by doing some minor redesign. and then they worked with the firm to evaluate what other options in terms of could they blast it out, could they chisel it out, and they had to deal with certain restrictions like there's an existing water line, you can't blast within a certain distance of a water line. And then they looked at the specifics of the bedrock, and they had about 2 feet that they had to get. And in order to do the blasting, they would have had to do about 30 days worth of small borings and blasting, micro blasting for a month in order to do something that they could do in a much shorter period of time by just chiseling. So in that circumstance, the shortest and most efficient way and least impactful way was to chisel it. In another circumstance, it might be something very, very different. And it's trying to be nimble to different circumstances while, again, we don't have any standards today. So
I strongly support the idea of taking a second look at this. What I see in here is a direction to the DRB to balance interests without telling the DRB toward what end. So, for instance, the DRB doesn't really know. There's no instruction how to manage that balance. Is it to make it most economical to the developer? Is it to make it, the most expedient way to minimize disturbance to the public? We don't say. We don't say what the standard is, what the goal that the DRB is trying to achieve in that balance. So there's no subjective standard framework for the DRB to operate under. And I think a subjective framework is really important so that they know what they're trying to achieve. I also think an objective standard would be really helpful to make it easier for the DRB to achieve that, so they're not, struggling so much, an objective decibel standard. So I would be a proponent of including standards, both subjective and objective, for the DRB to have to make that process more transparent and easier and less controversial.
Yeah, and I would agree with both those comments, but Tim's comment about this is really a good first step. Having listened to the Planning Commission discussion, it's really clear that it requires a longer conversation to really get at the notion of what is the right standard, what is the measurement of that standard, where does the measurement occur? So a number of those different variables. And I thought the Planning Commission's discussion identified all of that next phase and what that could look like, and take a lot of the subjectivity out of it. But I do think it is clear to me, to the LDR, is linking it to the nuisance ordinance. It's clear what the goal is to really minimize the impact to surrounding neighbors for the most part. So one clarifying question on what's included: identify the need for removal early in the process, and the board can require an evaluation. Can you just clarify how that would happen?
sure. So the standards, an applicant often goes through multiple stages of review. As we were looking at this subject, it seemed too draconian to be at a place of saying everybody must test their soil before they ever put a shovel in. That's one direction a community could go in, but then everybody who puts a shed in would have to do a geotechnical analysis. Today we're at sort of the opposite end, which is that there is no standard. And so what this tries to set up is that this evaluation takes place through the Development Review Board process. Somebody who knows that they're going to be facing removal of ledge would be, and they already do through Act 250 today, most of them, would benefit from doing it early. Test it, evaluate it. If the board gets evidence from whatever source that there may in fact be ledge that's going to need to be removed, and the applicant for whatever reason doesn't think so, the board can require an evaluation of a geotechnical analysis of the ground, assuming that through one way or another that has been found that bedrock would be removed. Then a plan must be submitted to do so. So it sort of incentivizes being early in the process, because you're doing all sorts of other things anyway as a developer. So this is the time that would save you the time down the road, while still giving a path that if you discover it later, the board can still require it.
Yeah, I
So
thought
it's-
those elements were another good safeguard around this until you get to the next stage. Thanks.
Paul, where in the LDR red lines is this addressed? I haven't been able to find it.
Sure. It is in Article 16. So this isn't a new area.
Construction erosion control standards.
Right. So it really, as it says in the blue box over here, when we started looking at this, there's the performance standards of a regulation which already address sort of ongoing things like an HVAC unit that's going to be running 24/7. It's part of the project. There's the nuisance ordinance that city attorney is going to speak about that's really about instantaneous things like parties at 3 a.m. And then there's this category that really is about not the ultimate what will exist, let's say homes, but the process and the work to get there. And so we put it in Article 16, which is erosion control. It's the things that are during the time of construction. And then there's also a piece in Appendix A, which is the performance standards, and that's really just the cleanup of things that really don't belong in the land development regulations around nuisance, like playing of loudspeakers that, belong more in nuisance, but it's really not about the bedrock piece. It's just about tidying up roles and responsibilities.
Okay, our next topic is about the calculation of heights. So we have, well, I guess I was about to jump into what's included, but the idea is that the calculation of heights has been troublesome for projects in the past because they've been measured from the existing grade, which changes kind of throughout the project as land is graded. So this would bring it basically in alignment with other more typical measurements of this height. So that it would be measured from the average finished grade. And we think that this will, generally just make the process easier because it's a more universally used measurement type. There's also a few small changes to the maximum heights. And specifically bringing ADU accessory structures to be 2 stories high.
When they contain a dwelling unit.
Oh, right. Dwelling unit.
Purlin? What is a purlin? Is that in the upper right? It says the top of the purlin, inflection point, top of purlin.
That is the
hip?
is the inflection point on the.
That's what it's called.
Yes.
In a roof, is there just a building or roof or?
So it's the. Yes, you're getting past my technical skill set. We had architects draw this part of it for us, but it's the inflection point in a hipped roof like that.
Okay, cool. I learned something.
Councilor Smith knows better than.
Hipped or gambreled roofs have purlins. Yes.
That's why we have the arrow that points at it.
That little dot is a purlin.
So
Oh, back to that? Okay.
the change from pre-construction to average finished grade sounds pretty significant in terms of heights. Am I wrong? Because like I've seen builders and Lori would know better, raise up from the pre-construction grade, homes pretty high, right? And then if you're measuring from that newer, like really high point rather than what used to be that really low point, you're giving like potentially a lot of additional height to that structure. Is that?
So that was a specific issue brought up by commissioners, the mounding up around buildings. And so in the definitions of establishing, or in the standard of establishing your grade, it says that you can't mound up just to put a building up higher. So as the Development Review Board is evaluating the ground level, that's one of the things that you can't just be mounding up to get a taller building.
But is there like any standard or any way of evaluating whether developers, and there's like one thing I guess you could do is compare to the road height or compare to something else that's fixed, right? So you know whether or not they're doing that, or compared to the height of the end of the driveway. Like how do we know? How would anyone evaluate that?
It's tricky. We did a lot of outreach to folks in the engineering and development community on this subject and asked about different iterations of this, of could we do it according to the adjacent road? What are different ways of doing it? And ultimately, I think we landed on one. The circumstances become so different site to site that to always pick the road won't work, because sometimes, let's say, Spear Street has sort of a natural slope up from there. Or a natural slope down on the other side. In general, though, we took this with a grain of salt, but in general, the feedback that we got was that the substantial changing of grade is very, very, very expensive. And it is protected against by this mounding up standard. But the professionals that we spoke with also said it's not an especially common thing in our area to do it to begin with because of that. So it was take the feedback and then also protect to make sure that it's not being mounded up. But that was some of the feedback.
How much taller do we expect homes to be given this change?
So
when you look at from the surrounding, ground.
Sure. So are you talking about the taller from the grade or just the grade?
Well, both. You can answer both, but one because of the grade change and otherwise whatever other changes. Yeah.
Sure. So I think in this round of amendments, we've separated the grade and wherever that's going to land from the height of the building, which in the past was a little bit intermixed and confusing, frankly, in the development community. The board could previously approve a change in grade associated with the development, so it was already taking place. Now it is just part of the general review. We're not expecting that there's going to be massive changes in when a subdivision or a property gets laid out because of this. It just makes the calculation a lot easier to deal with the post-construction. As a simple example, when we were reviewing the construction over on Elm Street in the Spear Meadows neighborhood, there was a lot of figuring out of how much above the newly built street does the house need to start in order to have a natural sort of sloping of the front lawn, and does that count against the height of the building or against the height compared to the street? And so we're trying to separate those two subjects out.
Drainage is really important when you're doing
regarding the height of the buildings themselves. For single unit buildings, it adds, I believe, 3 feet is the number that gets added, and that's really to account for really changes in what the public has been interested in. So we've seen a number of buildings recently where the interest has been to have a little bit more space on the first floor, a little bit of a taller first floor, and in order to accommodate it, the development community is flattening the roof, which makes the buildings not look great. And so, it's sort of rolling with some changes in what people are looking for and not letting the architecture suffer as a result. For some larger buildings, like
that would bring it to 31 feet. Am I right? Or what does that bring it to?
I have to look up the exact number, but it's somewhere in that range. Yeah.
From 28 to 31, is that?
I think so.
That sounds.
Yeah, I can double check it.
Yeah.
For 5 to 12 plexes, the commission, where those are allowed, the commission did allow those to become a little bit taller. They did a review of areas like South Village, where there are both 2-story 10 plexes and 3-story 8 plexes, and we're posing the question of if we're allowing that building type in there, and we're trying to meet our housing goals, and we're trying to be thoughtful about land use and land consumption, that was something the commission specifically asked to allow for that third story essentially on that 5 to 12 plex so that it's not being land consumptive. So that's completely a policy choice, but that was something the commission recommended.
So the 3 feet, I guess, is allowing people to do like 10-foot ceilings on the
Yeah,
first
a
floor.
little more roomy,
More-
so you don't have
More
that.
conditioned space, more space to heat.
Which I think the challenge is they're already doing it and they're making the roof this instead of this in order to do it.
There
So
are
that's
houses
what
in-
we're already seeing happening.
Yeah.
Houses in Pinnacle are a good example. There are several that had to be recapped. Their peaks had to be taken down and flattened off because afterwards they determined they were too high.
We've had one over on
Schoolhouse
years ago that was the case. There was one that happened with this again as part of Spear Meadows where they removed the roof and had to bring it back.
Yeah.
There was another example of a home off Bartlett Bay Road that was trying to meet some minimums, and what they wound up with was almost a flat roof building because they were achieving their minimums. But you know, I think
And sometimes
they and the neighbors all agreed it didn't look especially good, but it met the rule.
Sometimes the mounding is done because you want a walkout basement or you want egress windows from bedrooms, you know, on one side of the building. So that helps achieve that level.
Sure.
So
But I'm sorry, and just coming back to the first question. So do we expect, moving from pre-construction to average finished grade, how much taller do we expect the homes to look?
Well, it almost depends what the site looked like to begin with. They shouldn't look taller because it's all based on the grade that's out there after the building's done. So you have your actual lawn and everything going on, and then your building kind of coming up from it. Where the old standard was based on what used to be there. So if there was any amount of grading, it's all based on the current standards based on the pre-construction grade. So if the pre-construction grade was, say, higher and then they cut it down, you would actually wind up with a building that looks higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's maybe not typical, but yeah.
So we have one more topic. So this is just minor and technical amendments. They're all listed out here. I'm not going to read them all. Many of these are corrections. Some of them are to align with state law or clarifications and some fixes. So we can leave that up there if you want to see if you have questions about any of those. And that was our last kind of section.
Can we go back to the T4 to T5? What's the road, the southern boundary of that change? Is that San Remo?
So the southern boundary of the change of T4 to T5 is Healthy Living on the east side of the road, and the former Sears Auto U-Mall property on the west side of the road.
Okay. Then the PowerPoint,
Or maybe,
It's maybe a
it
little
might go to San
confusing.
Remo.
the massing on the PowerPoint is a little confusing. Those tall buildings, I think, are shown south of there, if I'm not
Looks like it's
mistaken.
down to
Like if
San
you go to
Remo.
the next page,
Sorry, so Healthy,
next page?
yeah.
Yeah. Right, because
So that already is T4. So T4 would allow the 135-foot/12-story buildings. That exists throughout.
T5 is extending to healthy living, and T4 is south of there. This is showing T4. I see.
Correct.
Okay.
And one important thing we didn't really talk about because it's not a change in the regulations, but wherever a transect zone is up against a low-scale neighborhood like the east edge of San Remo, the cap remains in place that it's 5 stories, and above 3 stories facing that neighborhood within 150 feet, it has to step back. So that's existing in the current regulations. So what you see on those buildings in the far right there is essentially the same maximum scale that is currently allowed. And that same thing would apply in that portion of the east end of Market Street, which is becoming T4. So the commission had explored a possibility of having a liner building of T3 and then T4 behind it, but instead determined that if they put the standard saying within 150 feet of a lower scale district that you're capped at the 5 stories, that created this opportunity to step up or step down or up, whichever way you want to describe it.
And is the southern edge of that T4 right up to the middle school? Is that where that ends?
Yes, that's, yeah. So that includes the current PC construction property and the old radio station that's been vacant. Yeah.
So that boundary to the east side is sort of similar to what you have on Hadley Road towards Grandway or Hadley Road towards Bacon Street Lofts. Or it's
Yeah,
roughly
I mean,
equivalent to that.
similar in the sense that the Cathedral Square building down there steps upwards. So they built an addition a few years after the original one where it's 3 stories, I believe, or 2 stories, and then it steps up to the
Right.
4 or 5 afterwards.
Right.
So
After a parking lot. So there's some distance there. And then they have the berm too. So
yeah. And again, that standard's not proposing to change in here.
any other questions about the presentation?
Can I just clarify, Paul? I think you answered this previously in part, but I know in the paperwork the Planning Commission submitted. I'm going to blank on the report on the LDR amendments. There was a question asked at the state level on impact on housing. Can you kind of clarify just a summary of what your expectations are or estimates on anticipated impact on incremental units?
Sure. So what Councilor Fitzgerald is referencing is that under state law, whenever the Planning Commission goes to consider amendments to the land development regulations, they have to do an evaluation of the consistency of those amendments, both with their own city plan and then with a whole series of state goals and state statutes around limitations on bylaws. One of the specific criteria is an evaluation of the implications or impacts on safe and affordable housing. And so for each amendment, we don't necessarily run a numerical analysis of the exact number of homes that could be created, but we do an evaluation as to whether what at a very broad scale is the likely implications of something. And so if we were to for example, a couple of years ago when the habitat blocks came in, the commission noted that certain areas would become not available for housing, and that those were being paired with other amendments at the same time that fostered more infill housing. And so taken together, they felt that they were that the regulations were advancing overall access to housing while acknowledging that not every single piece of it is doing that. In this case, really the amendments generally outside of the city center form-based code don't have an implication to housing. If they do, they're minor things like the heights of buildings, which are creating a little more access, but not dramatically so. In city center, with the additional heights specifically, that does afford more access to potential housing. It's not a guarantee. It could be commercial uses as well. As I think Councilor Barrett said, we don't necessarily anticipate that tomorrow we're going to start to see the maximum height of buildings. The more likely short-term implication is that debates and conversations that developers have had with us about the current maximum of 5 stories, and is this a 6-story? What about the fact that the parking garage is in the back? We had a lot of back and forth at the former Holiday Inn site about what the in-between story is that's a mezzanine for the commercial use. Those kinds of complicated conversations are removed here because it doesn't matter if it's 5 or 6 or 7 now. So that's more likely what we're going to see, but that's a very long answer to a very short question, which is net positive to housing.
Can I make, this is also not directly addressing your question, but I do want to, before you wrap up your question, I do want to circle back to where Jessica and Paul started, which was part of looking at this form-based code is successfully building out our TIF district and maximizing the potential of where we already have development in the city. And for the community and the council who have seen the past TIF projections, the TIF is only successful if we're building one brand new building a year for the next 10 years. And we've been able to do that in the past couple of years because we've had greenfield sites. That's going to become much harder as sites are redeveloping. And so that added height potential that gives developers a higher potential ROI, as well as is more affordable for the residents, is a potential win-win-win from the TIF perspective, from the resident perspective, and from the developer perspective.
What's the southern boundary of TIF? Is that healthy living, or does that extend down to middle school?
The San Remo Drive
San Remo.
is all the way down to the middle school property, not including the middle school property, but all the way down San Remo. One note that we didn't really talk about in here, but is part of this, is the T5 would also have a minimum of 3 stories in it, which is a current minimum of 2. That's really a statement of when you come to do your investment, we need a substantial investment in the core of our city center, because these are both our TIF district. They're also the buildings that are going to be here for the next, hopefully, century. And so I really think this is the downtown.
Any other questions from councilors? I mean, I'll take some input from the public if there's any, but this is not a public hearing. We're preparing to perhaps designate a public hearing, but if there's any comment from the public, now's the time to make it.
Ryan Doyle speaking. For about 2 years, I've been asking the city to take a really hard look at the official map. And as proposed, if it is passed, I will continue to be asking for a more serious look at the official map. There are some really key things that are added that are really beneficial, including a connection from the soon-to-be-built bridge over I-89 to Dorset Street directly without being funneled back to Williston Road. It really should have been the original alignment anyway. Glad to see that is finally being added. There's also a path through the part of the middle school parcel from Barrett Street to Dorset Street. That's an important connection. There are these little additions that are really key, but I don't think what is being proposed actually enhances the network of connectivity for the 3 modes of transportation we consider, which are pedestrians, cyclists, and automobiles. There's a lot here in the proposal that would make it more difficult and sort of confuddle those networks. I think it's really important to look at how all of those behave, what kind of conditions they need, and the space that they take up. That's really important when we look at the distance between intersections in particular. And that part of analysis was not done here. So I'm going to continue to advocate for the city to undertake that.
Thank you, Ryan. Anybody else? Anybody online?
There are people, but nobody's.
Okay. So is council comfortable with wanting to move to warn a public hearing for this?
No.
I mean, I am personally. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I think, to go back to, I used to think I was a visual learner, and then I looked at these blocky buildings on the map here, and it is really difficult for me to sort of look at this and sort of envision, and I know these are just examples, and I understand the process, but to be looking at authorizing buildings up to whatever it was, 12, 14 stories, and knowing that we're concentrating housing in an area and it is a priority to commit to that green space. So I don't understand the nuance. I think, Tim, you articulated it well, that this was not part of the Planning Commission's goal or the review of this part of the official map. But I do think I would like to better understand kind of how we incorporate the promise that was made to this denser housing structure in moving, and I don't know if that's Planning Commission or how that happens, but to really understand how to move that promise forward as we agree that this is, this is going to be the form-based LDRs going forward. So and you're looking at me questioning, Jessica.
What, can you say
He's
a
like,
little more
"What-
about
what is she
how do we
saying?"
incorporate the promise made to denser housing structure if it's not
To include
density?
dedicated green space.
Oh,
Yeah.
So there are kind of three reasons why I think this is not ready for a public hearing. One, I'm very uncomfortable with the changes to what I'll call the DoubleTree parcel. I just think it feels inappropriate. I'm also not comfortable with the 12 stories south of healthy living. That it just feels to me like we're moving too quickly. City center, I get. We can have tall buildings there. That kind of makes sense. But from healthy living south to the middle school, to put, and I know it's not going to happen tomorrow, but we're planning for it because we're providing for it. To put this mass of 12-story buildings in that area, it feels to me inappropriate too. Just too much, just too urban. For me right now, 6 feels better for that area, honestly. And then I agree with Laurie that we've been talking about a city green now for at least 2 years. And I'd like to make progress on it. And I know where I want it. And using the official map is a tool that allows us to get there more quickly. I think we need to talk about it. I don't know, we need to do that tomorrow. I'd like to understand if there are downsides. I'm not aware of what they are, but if there are, then obviously that needs to be in the calculus as to how we move forward. But that's another piece that I think needs more attention at this point.
I'm comfortable with the LDRs. I feel like there needs to be more conversation on the city map. And I understand your perspective, Tim. When I look at the blue circles that are on the map currently, they're for things like exit 13 or exit 12B, which we haven't even agreed are going to happen, but they're on the map. The lot across the street is a lot that has been identified and has been seriously discussed. It's not on the map. I don't understand, and I understand you get pissed at me for coming back at this, and instead of being argumentative, I want to have healthy conversation about the decisions that we're making and respectful conversation about it rather than aggressiveness.
No. So I understand that. I'm suggesting that I want to move these LDRs forward. I think most of the council wants to, despite some of your misgivings on certain aspects of it, right? I want to move this forward. I want to set the public hearing. And if you want to go back and have the, to tell the planning commission to look at the blue circle, we can do that. But I don't think this is the right time for that.
Well, once we go to public hearing, it's too late for it.
It is too late for that at that time.
For this
but
round, yes.
We have the future to work on.
We have the future, but these are things we're working on today. So if we're working on them today, why don't we have them on the map today?
Yeah, I hear
you. And when we've done this in the past and we've had presentations to us, it's been the time to review them and say, yes, this is ready, or no, there are things that we're still concerned about and we'd like feedback, or a revisit of it before it goes to public hearing. This is one of those places where I feel like there should be that consideration. I hear Andrew feels that way. I heard Elizabeth having concern about it.
Well,
haven't heard anything from Anne. So I think it's something that's I would still like to see discussed. I'd be happy to see the LDRs go to public hearing, but I don't feel like the map is ready.
Okay, so let's take a straw poll, right? If we were to vote on setting the motion for the public hearing right now, who would be in favor of that? I would.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why did I volunteer?
Because you like it.
Can we move forward with just one and not the other?
Well, sure. We can move. Go ahead, Paul.
So There are elements of this official map and the city center form-based code update that are kind of tied together. So Jessica referenced the official map describing these primary, secondary, and tertiary streets. Those are connected directly into the form-based code about what you can do on each of those. We were trying to simplify from the current regulation, and so I think if you did one without the other, that could create sort of an in-between time where the text is pointing to something that doesn't exist. If the council, you have a few different options here. One would be to hold on all of it. One would be to advance it and then choose to give direction to the planning commission about what you'd like to do as an additional amendment to the official map. There's no restrictions on how frequently it gets updated. It just has to go through its process.
How long does that process take?
So the planning commission has to consider something under the state law. They have to warn and hold a public hearing. Normal, that takes about a month. In terms of getting it in the newspaper, etc. It comes to you, and that's the point that you're at tonight, and that's a minimum of about a month again. So it's sort of 2 months is the very minimum, but that's from when the commission knows what their direction is, what they're going to do. In the scheme of things, it's not that much different from the point at which you are now.
What I heard you say is it's really not possible to split the map from.
I think it would be, if you split the map, we'd probably also have to make some changes in the form-based code, and that would be tricky to undo. So yes.
And I guess just to add that, we know that there might be other things on the official map that warrant additional work. This was a really focused official map change. It's very specific to the connectivity and the secondary, tertiary, primary street designations, because we're incorporating them in the LDRs for the first time. So
Yeah,
I'm not pushing you one way or the other. I'm just saying, I know this was kind of a focused look.
Yeah, one thing I would add, and maybe this is partly to you, Anne, is the first year I came on council, there was a significant set of LDRs that were being updated at the same time. And there was a discussion about why wasn't height included. And I remember that conversation specifically. There might have been some other elements, but that was clearly going to be, there was a parsing out of the work for the Planning Commission that this was the next phase of that. So I do think that's a bit of the nature of the beast. And to that end, I would support going forward to public hearing, but I don't know if there's a way to sort of link the map to this point in time, sort of effective with the LDR amendments as of this date, and then we can understand. I'm the first to say I don't fully understand the regulatory nature of the official map and identifying areas that are dedicated to some future intent. So that's what I'd like to hear more of, and sort of, I think you are hearing that at least from 3 councilors, and I know you support a city green, but I would support going forward to the public hearing and just want to understand, one, how to move that concern forward along with others that maybe you've heard people articulate here.
So just briefly on those points, legally, whenever the council warns a public hearing on zoning amendments or official map amendments, it's functionally the same thing under state law, then they're in effect for any applications that come in after that time. So let's say you advance this package and you warn a public hearing, this package would be in effect pending your action as soon as it's in the other paper. If you were to direct the Planning Commission to look at additional amendments to the official map as soon as they go through their hearing process and come to you and you warn your hearing, those would then also be in effect. So if that was the council's pleasure to do this in this 2-part piece, then I think giving some direction to the commission about broadly what are you looking for so that they can evaluate it and come back to would be at least our recommendation.
So what's your pleasure? Ann?
Well, my pleasure would be that we delay it until the next, we not make a decision until the next meeting. I got the impression that there may be some things happening that isn't, anyway. That would be my preference. Right. I mean, that would be my preference, would be at our next meeting, so in 2 weeks, for us to have this discussion again and maybe be clearer.
Would there be any additional information provided to council in that 2 weeks that we don't have now?
I would be interested in having staff and the planning commission potentially look at whether or not to add one more bubble to the map. One or more bubbles to the map for the what's the term that it's giving, the blue circles, for
The bubble,
designating areas of the city map that are
the bubble you're concerned about is the
city center.
city
Park.
center park.
Yes,
So if you were
either one or more than one bubble for city center parks.
if you were interested in doing that, part of staff's evaluation would be to review statute with the city attorney in terms of the planning commission's role, because it is in your hands. You can certainly get their informal feedback on the subject, but the LDR and official map are in your hands now, not theirs formally, just to be technical about where it sits.
Unless we asked it to go back.
Yes, you could send them back to them formally, but then that is in their hands again, not in your hands. So then they'd have to warn a new public hearing if they made any changes. So it's where it sits.
So I would also be happy to delay that conversation, but I don't want to delay it forever. I feel like when we review the city map and we make a decision, we don't look at it again for another year or another significant period of time. And I think it would be a mistake for this conversation to be put off for an extended period of time. So I don't know how we,
For 2 weeks, or whatever the
Right.
next meeting.
Well, Lori, can I ask a question? We're still waiting on recommendations from the master plan for open space and parks too. So,
correct.
I mean, to me, that would be information that would inform a map. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't move forward with the proposal or the recommendations from the planning commission now, and then tie a review. I know you prefer not to do it. No one would like to do anything more than once a year, but tie any future action to the presentation of that master plan.
Which is a master plan.
What's that?
Which is a master plan.
Which is a master plan, and in the document they presented today, having a park and city center was one of the highlighted pieces of that presentation. That's one of the reasons this feels like it's an important piece of the puzzle. Sorry to make it difficult.
So not enough votes to move forward?
Excuse me, Jesse.
You're shaking your hand. I hate to delay things for things that come up last minute to be added that haven't been evaluated properly, and we don't have good feedback from staff at this point. That's what bothers me, because there's too many questions about it.
I mean, that's why I want 2 weeks.
But in order to get that bubble added, it still has to go back to the planning commission, and then they have to warn a public hearing to say they're going to add the
No,
dot.
that's how
I heard that we could add it.
yeah, I heard that we can.
I heard that we can add it, but
I think that given the nature of it in this specific instance, that's something that I'd like the opportunity to talk with legal counsel about where we're at with it, because it would create a new impact on a property. So I think just in terms of the best interest of the city, if you want the answer to that, I think I'd like to have the opportunity to talk to the city attorney about it.
I'm willing to wait till the next meeting to resolve this, okay? And you can get the feedback from legal counsel, and city council can get feedback from staff, right, about things.
So I think the feedback you would be looking for is legal guidance and then other agenda items.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do that. Let's postpone this until next meeting, which is August 4th. So do we need a motion for that?
Just don't take any action. No action.
We're not going to take any action tonight, but we deeply appreciate all the work that Planning Commission and staff have put into this set of changes, and I'm confident that we'll support it at the next meeting. Some public comment? Quickly?
Michael Mittag, I'm Planning Commissioner. Do I understand it that you're sending it back to the commission?
No.
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 What do you expect from the commission in 2 weeks?
Nothing.
Just legal?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Do people need a break?
Can we take a break, and then when we come back, because we have an attorney online, can we skip 8 and go to 9?
Sure. Anybody objections?
Not permanently skip 8, just
Yeah.
Yes.
for a moment.
Okay.
A swap. Thank you.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break, folks, and we'll be back. Okay. All right. So we're going to start up again. Welcome back, everybody. And we're going to go to item 9, right? Which is receive an update on the Dorset Street shared use path and potentially set a public hearing on necessity with Erica Quall, and Deputy Director of Capital Projects. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Councilor Pugh, good to meet you. I'm Erica Quallen, Deputy Director of Capital Projects from Public Works. Thank you for having me back about this topic. And I am going to run through a bit of the background again, since we have a new face at the table, and also just make sure we're all coming from the same place into this conversation. So we are looking at a 0.7 mile stretch of shared use path on Dorset Street. On this map, the red lines are all, the solid red lines are all existing shared use paths, and the blue box is around a very faint dotted red line, which is the area of this project. And so this is the southern end of Dorset Street. On the left of your screen, you can see Vet Memorial Park and Wheeler Park. So, like I said, this 0.7 mile section of shared use path that is proposed to be 10 feet wide and paved from Old Cross Road to Sadie Lane. It would be situated on the east side of the road and connects to existing shared use paths that have left this gap here. Right now, we have a $661,000 grant from the Vermont Agency of Transportation, and Penny for Paths funds have been, as well as some transportation impact fees, have been committed to the match and any funds on top of that. And the way the CIP stands right now, it is planned for construction next year. So this is the big background from when I really went into the history last time I was here. So the first few is just kind of, I find it interesting, and it was fun to dig through all of the old maps. But really the second half on the right here is what we're focusing on. So this project has been around for a while. We're coming up on 10 years of this project. So in 2016 was one of the first times it was identified beyond just a comprehensive plan. It was studied in 2017, moved into that grant that we're now operating under, and that grant covers design, right-of-way, and construction cost. And then what we're talking about tonight primarily started in 2022, which is the right-of-way phase. So that scoping study that was done, there's also a link here if you want to take a look at it. There were 3 other segments of road around the city. 2 of those have been constructed, actually, when I was looking through it, which is always fun to see studies that got there. And in this study, the purpose and need, just to kind of give you some context here, but it was really just about identifying safe pedestrian and bicyclist facilities. And so part of that scoping study was, well, the point of a scoping study is to arrive at a preferred alternative. So then you can move into design and construction. So in this scoping study, there was an evaluation done of multiple alternatives. And the alternatives that were initially brought forward were a path on the west side of the road and a path on the east side of the road. And the path on the west side of the road was not carried forward based on the reasons here was really that there are 2 crosswalks that are needed, and based on current standards, it would just be a bit prohibitive. You'd have to cross twice. A lot of the destinations and origins are on the east side of the road, and so the preferred alternative was to go with the path on the east side of the road. And there was also a recommendation in there for some access management at the driveways. So coming from that point, here we are. So that study was published in 2017, got the grant in 2019, and have since moved through the first 4 major steps of design, which is our survey, 30% or conceptual design. We have received our environmental clearance from the state and completed the 60% or preliminary design back in 2021. And then beginning in July 2022, actually right when I started, I just hit 3 years here, the right-of-way phase started here. And after right-of-way phase is complete, just for reference, there are 2 sets of plans and then can move to construction. Those 100% plans are what's used for bidding. So within that right-of-way phase, since it started, the first kind of point of contact was a notification of the right-of-way process, and that's what was happening in July while we were getting all of our ducks in a row with the state to get approval and get all of our warranty deeds drafted, everything like that. So everything was out to all of the property owners. There were 12 properties, originally 13. We designed one out. It was a very small impact, so we were able to remove that one parcel. So the offer letters went out at the time to 13 property owners. By the time we sent the final offer letters, it was down to 12 parcels. And so that was October of last year. And that one had a deadline on it saying this is the last time we'll be reaching out about this. We want to negotiate if there are ways we can arrive at an agreement. So as of tonight, following your acceptance of 3 warranty deeds on your consent agenda, 9 of the properties are now completed. I will go and record those 3 at the clerk's office later this week, and which leaves 3 properties. So this is just laying out along the project line. The green is where we are completed, so you can just kind of see the length of the project and how much is completed, how much is not. So I think the big decision on your plates tonight is if you want to move forward into a condemnation hearing. And so based on the negotiations, we have not been able to reach an agreement with the final 3 on the final 3 properties. So there are some steps if you want to hold a condemnation hearing. So and this is all based out of state statutes. This is the technical one. I'll leave up for basis of discussion the one that's more clear, but just to make sure you have all of your information here. So if you choose to go forward with it, you would publicly warn the hearing. We are suggesting a date of September 29th. That gives us as staff and our attorney time to put together all of the notices, make sure everything goes out to the interested parties and all of the kind of required outlets for that, so that we have that 30 days. So we get about a month to put that all together and get it out, so that we meet that 30 days prior to the hearing. Then the hearing would be held, and then council is required to provide a report of your findings within 60 days of that hearing. And during all of this process, we have offered compensation to all of the property owners in accordance with the Uniform Act. And so throughout this process leading up to the hearing and continuing as an alternative to condemnation, at any time, property owners can accept an offer of compensation that's agreeable to the city and the property owner. So this does not mean negotiations are off the table. This is just a step, marking a date on the calendar.
I do want to note, just as you're considering this, that September 29th is not a regular meeting for you. It would be a special meeting.
And in your motion, I can lay that out. And it did work out that it's a 5-week month, so it doesn't really gum up a month for you too much, hopefully. So if you chose to move forward with the condemnation, here are the kind of quick hitting items minus statute references. So your task tonight would be to warn that condemnation hearing. You would hold that hearing if you chose the September 29th date. And that hearing would also include a site walk and examination of the premises. So that timing is listed in your warning language, and then issue that decision. And it would be on myself and our attorney to pull together and provide all of that notice. And we would provide information as testimony to the pieces that are asked of us by statute for that hearing. And throughout this whole process, like I said, we'll continue to negotiate with property owners to ideally reach an agreement. And so if you do choose to warn that, it is a very long motion that you are being asked to make here. This was laid out by our attorney, so it's all good.
I do also want to note that we have outside counsel for this,
Yes, we
David
do.
Rue, who is online. Stephen, I don't know if you can put up on the screen here the view with the participants as well. There we go.
And so in this language, like I said, we are proposing September 29th as that hearing date. It gives us enough time. It is a date that works for, I know, myself, Dave Rue, the engineer on our team. We've made sure it works for a critical mass of people. And looking at sunset times, it will not be as light out as late as it is now, unfortunately. So a suggested start time of 5:30 for that site walk, examination of the premises, and then reconvening here at 6:30. So
this is my first time talking about a condemnation hearing. What decision could be rendered by the city council after the 60 days?
I am going to leave this to Mr. Rue because it is also my first time. I have been learning a lot going through this.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dave Rue from SPNF Attorneys, formerly Stitzel, Page, and Fletcher. I know at least a couple of you at Jesse. Some of you may know we've represented the city as outside counsel for going on decades now in various capacities. Condemnation hearings are required by the U.S. Constitution if you cannot negotiate the taking of land rights from private property owners. As you may know, the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution requires that prior to the government takes any property, it needs to compensate that landowner fairly. So in a condemnation hearing, when you are proposing to take, in this case, easements for a bike path and slope and related slope and utility and temporary construction rights, you are going to be evaluating two key issues. One is the necessity for the project. Necessity is defined in part by statute It is not absolute necessity, but it balances the public need for the project versus the private benefit. The other issue you will be deciding is what compensation is due to each landowner for the rights that they acquire. You will receive testimony from city staff and engineers on the necessity piece, and then we will have the city's assessor and or an appraiser there to talk about compensation. The property owners are allowed also to present evidence on those two issues. Usually, unsurprisingly, the property owners will often come in with a higher compensation value than the city does if we get to that point. Often, and in my experience, having done a few of these for the city over the last 15 or so years, by warning the condemnation hearing, it helps move the negotiation process along sometimes, so that while we have 3 properties now, maybe 1 or 2 will drop off by the time we get to the condemnation hearing through negotiation. You also, just like any public hearing, if we're continuing negotiations with property owners and they seem to be moving forward in good faith and we're close, you can always open the hearing and the site visit on the 29th and then continue it to a date certain to allow for those negotiations to continue. You may know as government officials that taking private property is one of the most serious powers government has. We don't use it lightly. And as is clear, we've gone through at least a 3-year process here of trying to work with individuals before getting to this point.
Thank you, David. David, did you work for the school district at one point too?
We also did at one time represent the school district, yes.
So now I have a better understanding of that. Is the council comfortable with going ahead with a motion to set the hearing? If so, can I have that motion? You have to,
No.
Yeah.
It's a long motion. Does somebody have the cover sheet up in front of them?
Oh, here it comes.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the length of the motion, but I wanted to make sure we captured everything state law requires as we go forward here.
That's a long one.
And also this is, in addition to the 19 VSA Chapter 7 authority listed in the motion, the city has independent authority under Section 103B of its charter to acquire property rights as well, including for bike paths.
I move that we warn an examination of the premises and public hearing on necessity and compensation damages for the laying out of easements and related rights for the Dorset Street Shared Use Path, Project STP BP 19 (4), on properties known as Parcel 6, 7, and 10, also known as number 1580, 1550, and 1520 Dorset Street, pursuant to 19 VSA Chapter 7 on September 29th, 2025, with the examination of the premises commencing at 5:30 p.m., proximate to the property known as 1580 Dorset Street, Parcel 6, and the public hearing to follow at 6:30 p.m. at City Hall, 180 Market Street in South Burlington, Vermont.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion by council? All those in favor say aye. Aye. So it is unanimous. Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good to see you. Have a good night.
We'll see you on the 29th.
I'll see
Indeed.
you before that.
You'll see her before that.
You're coming to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Erica.
All right.
Thank you, David.
Thanks, everyone.
So that's 9. We're going to jump back to 8 now for to receive and hold a first reading of an update to the nuisance ordinance and warn a public hearing for September 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. with Paul Connor. Yes. Do you have a quick question? Can you come up? You have to identify yourself and speak in the microphone.
I'm Laura DiMaroni. I'm at 1520, so we have not given approval to use our property. One of our issues is that we need to know the amount of footage that's actually going to be used on our property, because our sewer system is also right there. It's a mound system, and we've asked several times to find out how much space is going to be used so that we can get our engineer who designed our system, to take a look and evaluate whether there will be an impact. And we've been told every time that until it goes out to bid, those amounts will not be available. This is not going to move us forward because we're not going to allow something to happen that we don't even know what the impact's going to be. So how are we going to deal with this?
So I think that's an item for the September 29th meeting. And are you going to be able to attend that meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And you think that that number will be available to us?
I
at
don't
that point?
know that for a fact. I can talk to staff later, but the fact that you bring that up at that meeting makes it an important point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Good evening. I'm Colin McNeil. I'm the city attorney. We're here tonight to discuss some minor amendments to the city's nuisance ordinance. The goal that has been made with these amendments is really to incorporate changes that you've already reviewed that were proposed to be made to the LDRs, which is incorporate some items that have been deleted from the performance standards, to also incorporate some language relating specifically to the removal of bedrock and incorporate that in the nuisance ordinance. And then there's also just one or two very minor changes that are more cleanup in terms of the ordinance itself. Let me just walk through these very quickly. In section 1421 enforcement, you see a removal of the word city community justice center. That's really just to address the fact that it may not be a community justice center forever, but it is. We want to include the language relating to a community justice center, so it's included. There's language in section 14.52 express prohibitions, which make specific reference that the items listed in here are a public nuisance and a violation of this article. The other changes in section 1452.6 are to incorporate specifically a change that was incorporated into the proposed LDRs relating to the removal of bedrock, and to mirror the times that were incorporated into those proposed changes into this changes so they are consistent. And the changes made to section 7, 10, 11, and 12 of the nuisance ordinance, including new language, is all language that was in the performance standards of the land development regulations that was proposed to be deleted and is now inserted into the nuisance ordinance. Those are the changes that are before you. The intention here was specifically to line up with the proposed changes of the land development regulations based on your recommendations at prior meetings when this has been before you.
So I just have a question. I think these changes are generally really good. It's a little confusing to me, just I guess through a legal lens, as to why we're addressing the jackhammering in two places. I think it's maybe confusing. It would be confusing to the public to then know under which regulation, under the LDR or under the ordinance, they should seek redress, right? It's the redress under the LDR for, whatever the remedies are there, revoked a permit or whatever the remedies are, or is the redress and remedy here, fines, injunctions. Just, to me, it just creates confusion. I obviously like the idea of limiting jackhammering, and these hours seem appropriate. It's just technically, I'm just wondering why we should have it in both places, or should we just have it in kind of one place and say it well, say it appropriately, and be really clear to the public as to what the remedies are. So I guess a question: why do we have it in both places?
In direct response to that question, the intent was that there are some different changes that are being proposed in the land development regulations for the removal of bedrock that weren't included here. And our goal was really to eliminate confusion. So the fact that it creates confusion was certainly not the intention. So we're not wedded to including it here. It was to eliminate confusion And we'd be okay with removing that change if that was something that the council wished to do.
I also have a question about, this is a noise ordinance, and it says that jackhammering can happen between 5 p.m. Wait a second, from 8 to 5. But it doesn't say anything about noise level. Everything else is about disturbance, and you can't disturb. All of a sudden, we're putting this in here, which saying, as I read it, you can disturb between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. if you're jackhammering.
No, you still, all this says is you can't between 5 and 8, but it's still a noise ordinance, so it says you can't disturb the peace in other hours. Or it doesn't actually speak to the daytime at all, right? Someone, I mean, Colin Clerk can still say that the jackhammering is disturbs my peace or health.
So if the jackhammering is still disturbing
peace or health, it doesn't say it's okay.
This just says it can't happen from 5 p.m. to 8.
Right? I mean, right?
That is what it says, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Withdrawn.
So, Councillor Chalnick, the argument to leave it in, or in some form similar to this, is that the land development regulations are prospective, so they apply to permits issued in the future. Part of the idea of unifying this in the clarity was that this would cover all activities as of the date of adoption. There may be a way, to your concern, to clarify the relationship between the two of them. We had an earlier draft where we had talked about a version of it said something along the lines of, if approved specifically through the LDRs, then it's not subject to this, but that seemed confusing in its own way. There may be a way to frame it, but that would be the reason to keep it.
Okay, so I totally take that point in this time period before, and now we've just delayed the LDR, so in the time period. But if that's the reason, and that actually sounds like a good reason to me, then we should incorporate some of the other stuff, like you can't do more than 40 hours per project, and like this is just like one element, right? Extracted from the performance standards. That's helpful, but incomplete.
Right, and I think that this is your ordinance. You choose the direction you want to go in. When we reviewed the meeting where this was discussed in February, Council's direction was to focus the attention on the land development regulations. There was a lot of active discourse about ways in which you could deal with this, but what we interpreted from that was we didn't have a council direction on what to do within the ordinance, so we were trying to take the lightest touch possible. As not having a consensus direction, but that is your prerogative.
From a noise ordinance point of view, this is the first time we've addressed bedrock removal, and it sets hours of the day when it is permissible.
It sets hours of the day when it is not permissible.
No, which by virtue also means when it is permissible.
No, it doesn't.
It mirrors the language of 5 right above it, if you see that. So it talks about that during the night, these things are prohibited. To what Councillor Chalnick was saying, it relies on the remainder of the ordinance for what happens during the hours of 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Is that correct?
But to me, it says because of this, go check the LDRs for what you can do.
No, Tim. This still is the general rule here is it shall be unlawful to make a loud, unreasonable noise, and then the 14-51 defines what that is. That rule applies, right? Because there's no exemption for this noise during the day.
This says you can't do it between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m.
Right.
Period.
Yes.
The LDRs are another whole set of rules about bedrock removal.
Yeah, but again, technically, right, between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m., this doesn't speak to bedrock removal directly, so it speaks generally. You can't make loud or unreasonable noise. And noise is loud or unreasonable when it disturbs, injures, or endangers the peace or health of a person.
Do you have the same concern of number 5? Do you have the same concern for number 5, which has not been changed?
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really examined how the performance standards speak to what's in 5. I'm just focusing on the bedrock. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just trying to see how these things fit together.
How hard would it be to reference the as of yet not agreed upon
But soon to be.
standards that are in the in the future LDR?
In our original, so you weren't here, but a few months ago, we brought before you some changes to the nuisance ordinance with an idea that these changes be focused in the land development regulations, which is what led us to being here tonight. One of those changes to the nuisance ordinance was essentially an exception for sound or an exception for noise that has been permitted through the LDR process. We did not include that in this particular draft because we really were trying to streamline it and make as little changes to this as possible. Because that was not our focus. The focus was on the LDR changes. We could come back with some language like that for your consideration that was similar to what was removed.
I don't see the problem with it. This,
I'm happy with this language because it only speaks to when bedrock removal is not allowed. It does not speak to the fact that bedrock removal is still under this ordinance for sound and disturbance.
That is correct. One thing out, and I don't want to enter into a territory where we're providing more advice than just talking about what the changes are. But one thing that we did consider in contemplating this change and the LDRs and working hand in hand was that if you have a process established in the LDRs that basically set forth this is how you go about getting bedrock removed, that would be a reasonable process that we would adopt. And if someone was in compliance with that standard and been approved through that standard and in compliance with the requirements of the LDRs, for us to then say that is unreasonable may be an uphill battle.
Right.
apart from number 6, is everybody happy with the other items?
Yeah.
I think my suggestion would be when and if we adopt the performance standards, we revisit this and maybe consider whether there are changes that would be useful to ensure these two sets of regulations work together nicely. For now, I guess I would go with this, and look forward to the noise standards and the noise rules and the performance standards.
Okay.
Do we need a motion?
Well, we think we have a member of the public that wants to speak. Anybody online interested? Yes.
Ryan Doyle speaking. So I had a question or something that you may want to consider on the section of enforcement, parts A and B. A mentions a specific person doing the violation, and B mentions that a violation counts as each day. And I wonder if this transposes locations and properties. If a contractor who is jackhammering or a trash hauler who is hauling trash outside of the hours or out of compliance I'm just not sure if each additional location is a resetting of first offense, or if being at a different location 6 months later adds to the second offense or not. Personally, I would like that to be a second offense, but I kind of open that up for you guys to consider of what actually where that is held.
So was that was a question, Ryan, for the lawyer?
I think it would be largely fact dependent. We'd look at it case by case.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
One thing to consider is the performance standards language that are included here are directly from the performance standards of the LDRs. They in what you heard a little bit earlier, in the draft that you saw, those were stricken, and they're added here because they were stricken there. I don't know if we need them in both places at the same time, but that's certainly up to you. Just want to make sure you're aware that is the case.
Okay. Well, are you ready to make a motion to set another date?
I move to warn a public hearing for September 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. For update to the nuisance ordinance.
Would that be a warning for the second reading? Is that what it is?
Second reading, first public hearing.
Okay.
So
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
What was the date we're talking about?
September 2nd at 7:00 p.m. would be the date of the public hearing.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
September 2nd.
Didn't you say September 4th was the next meeting?
August 4th.
August.
You're a month ahead.
Oh, Lord.
So we haven't ruled out that the LDRs that contain this would have a public hearing on the second as well yet.
I think you have because you wouldn't have the time to notice that public hearing.
I wonder if we should coordinate second readings of those two on the same date.
I don't think it's necessary the way this is written just for removal of bedrock. I mean, it just says when you can't do it. And normally they don't do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the times were included here because those were the times that were proposed to be included in the LDRs. We haven't had a significant discussion whether amongst you whether those are appropriate times or not appropriate times, but those were they were intended to be aligned with those changes.
I think Paul is telepathically trying to tell me that if you move the LDRs forward on August 4th without sending them back to the Planning Commission, then in theory you could still have time to warn on the 2nd of September.
Yeah, and I'm just
That's
asking
really
the question
scary, Paul.
because one is predicated on the other. I'm not anticipating this wasn't a topic of discussion of change within the LDRs, so I agree with you, Tim. It could move forward, but given it's predicated on it and those, we're going to have another meeting on those. That was my only question.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it is unanimous. Thanks very much. That was the first reading. So now on.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, guys. Colin, don't leave.
Totally. Yeah.
You
Item
don't have to
11.
say for the next item, just don't leave the room.
Item 11, discuss options for offering stipends for committee service and provide guidance to staff. Jesse Baker.
So I some councilors requested a little digging about how other communities handle stipends. You have that material in front of you. This is really your prerogative, how you would like to handle this. It is I'm currently an unbudgeted expense in FY26, but you have options if you would like to move it forward. And I do want to just add that Councilor Pugh did provide the state stipend program today, and I shared that with the full council. That does mirror the 50%, the $50 per meeting stipend offered by some of our surrounding communities. I also wanted, so I think a couple of things for you, key questions for you to think about are yes or no to offer stipends to volunteers who serve on boards and committees. What should that amount be? Is it an opt-in or an opt-out? Do you want to consider, therefore, stipends for folks who serve in other appointed roles, like for Chittenden County Solid Waste District or the Airport Commission? And if we move forward with this, how would you like us to fund it for FY26? So this is a policy call for you all to think about. Those are the key questions, some examples of what other communities around us do.
Jesse, I'm sorry, I missed the state Did you send something around on the state policy?
So with what Councilor Pugh shared today, for folks who are appointed, it's not in your documents in your email. It's not on the agenda. For folks who are appointed to a state board or commission by the governor, they can opt into a $50 stipend. Is that
It's an
your
opt-in.
understanding?
It's not just,
I didn't see.
the statute is actually, I think, in the email that our city clerk sent people this morning. But I found it online. It's boards and commissions that the governor may appoint one person in the board, but everyone on the board gets it. How's that?
Oh,
like,
yeah. That's more like the airport commission. You all appoint one person to the airport commission, but it would be like paying for the whole.
maybe I'm probably not being clear. There's an Office of Child Welfare kind of Office of Child, Youth and Family Commission, and the governor has one appointee, the legislature has one appointee, and the legislate, but everyone on there has the option of getting $50. I was just clarifying, it's not necessarily solely everybody who was appointed by the governor.
And to opt into that, do the appointed individuals have to say anything, like on the CCRP form? They have to say it would be a challenge for me to participate without the stipend.
They don't have to attest.
They just,
I have to say I've been on several when I was not a legislator, and I'm on one now. And it was sort of, it wasn't made a big deal about, as opposed to, I think, Winooski or one of the communities makes it explicit that you are eligible for it. I want to say it's like a secret, and some people know and some people don't know. But you do then have to sign a piece of paper
that says
either that and that you're there.
Okay.
So, just a word of caution. I think you could function without an attestation or a need for sure. I think for the way we pay, which is very different from how the state pays, names would show up on warrants. So just want to be clear about that.
Oh, good point.
So, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the only place you would see it is the warrant, right?
Or a public records request.
Right, the public record, yeah. Which
may I say that there's no, you don't have to prove you need it.
Right,
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That you need it for travel or childcare or whatever.
Right.
It's
But
one's choice.
It's an opt-in type situation.
Right, it's an opt-in.
Yeah, so I like the opt-in model.
Oh,
I like the
I like the
opt-in too.
opt-out.
So,
Opt-in,
Yeah,
meaning it's,
you have to ask for it.
yeah. I agree with that.
Well,
I prefer the,
what
well, I guess I prefer the opt-out.
So I like the idea of having a stipend for those members of the public that would like to serve and have a financial difficulty, whether it's for childcare, whether it's for whatever. I want to have as few barriers to serving as possible. So my thought about opt-in versus opt-out is, if whenever we have somebody who is newly elected to or appointed to a position, or someone who is reappointed, that there is a piece of paper that has the expectations and requirements of what they're doing, and at the bottom of it, it has a yes or a no box for whether they're going to ask for a stipend. So if you don't check either box, you don't get a stipend. If you check no, you don't get a stipend. If you check yes, you do. So someone has to be thinking about it rather than opt out, which is just you get it unless you say you don't want it. Because I would like it to be something that people consider. Is this something that I want or need? and I'm going to make a conscious decision rather than just a passive action.
You see, I see opting out as being we are offering it to everybody. And I'm making a decision to accept it, and you're making a decision not to accept it. And maybe we're saying the same thing. I thought that the city manager made a good point, whatever you call it, in the way that in one of the options that she presented.
That's why
The point about equity that you made. And so I want to follow that, whether that's opt in or opt out or whatever.
That's
If
why
we
I
went through that, you provided one option because you were not giving recommendations. You were giving things for us to consider. And
that's why I like the two boxes, the yes box and the no box.
And that's an opt-in and an opt-out
Yeah.
situation.
Okay.
Yeah,
You've combined
You've
them.
got them both right there, and if you don't do anything, you don't get it, and you choose one or the other.
And that's fine.
But then it makes it a conscious.
Yeah.
So then it's not just, and everybody has to make a decision. It's not like.
So what's the worst case scenario? What's this going to cost?
I think should apply in very limited cases, right? We've never done this before. We've had one member of the public now ask for it. Since I've been on the council, I haven't heard anyone ask for it. And I don't think we should make it that easy for folks to get, because then it becomes like a material budget item. And so I would like to use the CCRPC form and process where someone has to ask for the form, fill out the form, and say they have a financial hardship, and that's why they need the $50. That's what I think we should do, and it's fine. That's the person who came to us told us she had a hardship. It is what it is. There's nothing embarrassing about it, or
Does that make
that's
it a
fine.
stigma?
And she didn't think it was a stigma. She came to us and asked.
Yeah.
So and I wouldn't think it's a stigma. If you need it, you need it. It's fine. But this way, folks that don't need it aren't going to be tacitly encouraged to take it, because if you offer $50, everyone's going to take it. Well, most people will take it, even if they don't need it. And I think that we're just wasting money if we do that.
I would just say I disagree with you.
Yeah, I think the opt out is the most equitable option. I would concur with, Lori, yours as a solution. I think because of the history we've had with volunteers in the community, I don't think it's a bad thing to start this program with an opt-in option. I get the right one. I also think there are going to be reporting responsibilities the city will have with this. I think attendance at the meeting, they should only be paid if they attend. I don't think there should be a differential between positions on the committees. And because we just haven't had the history, I think if we implement something and make it an opt-in, that's our opportunity for a learning curve. And I thought Essex program, had some of the guardrails I think we would want in there. I don't disagree that the alternative is the most equitable, but we have a long track record of community members willing to serve. So to go from 0 to 60 with an unbudgeted item that requires a lot more oversight, and you could leverage it as an opportunity for people to sort of, agree to the ethics side of serving on a committee, and that could be written. I think everybody goes through some training at some point, but I would start it out with those parameters.
Can I take a step backwards? Is this something that I'm new? I can only say that for so long. Is this something that people agree? I mean, does the council want to move forward? If the council doesn't want to move forward, whether it's opt-in, opt-out, or 10 forms is not a discussion we should be.
Yeah, no, I think we're interested in compensating people that,
Okay.
that need the compensation. You know, if they say they have a need, right, and we have the ability, we should probably do it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of volunteers would probably not accept it.
Okay.
Wouldn't choose.
They,
You know, none of the examples here are opt out, right? All the examples we've seen are opt in.
Yeah.
With varying degrees of what folks have to say on the form to opt in.
So just as point of reference, what we get compensated at $50 a meeting
If we opt in,
would be 30 meetings a year.
we already get a stipend, so
I
we
know,
wouldn't-
but
We
I'm
do?
saying based on our stipend,
Yeah.
if it were $50 a meeting, we would have 30 meetings. And I think we have more than that. We had 7 in June, right?
well,
So 24, I mean,
are you counting
no, I'm just,
the liaison meetings?
I'm not including any of the liaison meetings. So I'm just saying $50 is a pretty nice stipend.
But a lot of these committees only meet once a month.
Right.
Right.
I
But except for
think
the
the
planning.
point, one of the towns indicated that if we are including even one individual who otherwise would want to participate and couldn't, that, I mean, I think that's the goal we're moving toward, is to create opportunities for people to participate who otherwise couldn't for whatever reason. And, you know, that not going to be coming to council for indicating the need. I think there should be some respect for privacy and with an opt-in approach too. But as you said, there'll be some record.
So I'm hearing that we want to do this.
And okay, so we don't care, right? We don't need to worry about the $60,000 or whatever.
Yeah, it's just money.
Just
No, you do.
Of course
You
we
do
do.
need to worry
just-
about it.
Just saying.
okay.
But we
Is
like
there
to,
a way to ramp this in over time?
To be serious, we don't need to be finding out where it's going to come
Yeah,
at
no,
this
but-
point in time.
But I guess my point, Ann, would be that I like the CCRPC model where someone opts in but has to say it would be a hardship. And if someone, that's what CCRP does.
And I think
then
it
we
should be an
wouldn't
opt-out.
have the I don't think if we had that it would amount to $60,000. I think there would be some folks who come. One person has come to us and said, we already know it's a hardship for her, so I'm sure she would say that and opt in. But I suspect there wouldn't be that many people in the community that would opt in that way, and so it wouldn't be $60,000.
I guess I disagree. I think if we're going to offer a stipend to everyone, it shouldn't be based, that it should be then the individual's choice whether they take it or not. And I might be a millionaire and decide that I want to take that $50 stipend because I'm my time is worth it or whatever. I mean, it's I hear what you're saying. I do around people who need it, but I guess the concept of need, I think, is a sticky issue that I would like us not to be going for, and it's that there may be people who need it. There may be people who need it, in your words, who won't take it because they're proud. And if so, I think to make us, whether it's to say yes we want it, no we don't, or whatever, but not to sort of only say, I'm going to fill it out because I need it. I think we all need to.
I agree with both of you guys.
Good.
But what I don't agree with for you, Ann, is I want it to be a conscious decision.
No.
As opposed to if it's an opt out. If I don't opt out, I automatically get it. I want someone to have to make the decision, a conscious decision.
to opt in or opt out.
Yeah.
So you want a piece of paper.
I want them to make the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
So we're in
don't
agreement.
disagree. We don't,
Good.
we don't disagree.
Yeah,
So-
it has to be an active.
What direction do you want? You want to come back with some?
I don't want staff to spend a whole lot of time
No.
on a policy or form
Yeah.
that a majority
Yeah.
of you don't
Yeah.
think you'll pass. So if you're directing me to put together a policy and a form, piece of paper, which I think we would need anyway to kind of check.
Yeah.
You want it to be, well, I'm going to go back to Elizabeth because I heard it very clearly. What I think I heard was start with an opt-in. You only get paid if you attend. No differential of the positions, and use the Essex example as a model, maybe integrating some of the CCRPC language. Start with that as a starting point. And
No, because an opt-in, I think, I mean,
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, Ann. I think because we don't have a track record with us, and the reality is this is a budget line item we've never planned for. So to not understand what the impact would be as we go into a budgeting year, that's part of the reason I'm recommending an opt-in. I completely understand the most equitable option is the opt-out, but we're also talking about committees that have just been put in place, and we're going through this calendar year right now.
And we can modify
Or
this
fiscal year.
in the future if we want to.
And I would accept everything that you said except the CCRPC language. And while I understand you're wanting people to state about need, I think that is a slippery slope. And if we just leave that out, if I say I want it, I want it.
I mean, if we took word for
I
word
know.
the Chittenden County's CPC one, instead of saying it would be a challenge for me to actively participate, if we just said I would like to receive.
Yeah.
Yes,
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Fine with me.
I would like to receive. Yes or no?
Well, it's
so, happy to do it that way. Just for what we will also come back to you with is if everybody opts in and attends 10 meetings a year ish, that will cost us about $61,000. So I'm going to also come to you with permission to use up to $161,000 of general fund unallocated fund balance to pay for the stipends. We will only use that which we use. The rest will stay in fund balance.
106 or just 60?
61. Sorry, did I
You
say
said
it?
161.
Where did the other 100 go? Where's it going?
Somebody's got the extra 102.
I meant 61,000
That's my thought.
for the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good. Everybody agree? More or less? 4 of us. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
You did agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got all
Oh.
5 agreeing.
Ryan, did you want to speak?
Yes, please. Ryan Doyle speaking. I think what you're coalescing on sounds really good. And to start out and not just go all in. If you go in that direction later, cool. I think one of the things that I would really want to see is, like an actual limit to who could get it, right? Like we have a lot of very privileged people who serve because they have the time and the capacity to, but as a taxpayer who pays a very large proportion of my income towards that, I'd be really frustrated to see somebody who is very affluent also receiving something when I believe that we should be giving to our community in any way we can. And somebody of privilege, I would expect to not be getting more benefits and gifts for doing such. So I really would like to see some type of financial limit onto who qualifies. I know there's a lot of things we do more towards the housing side of things where we look at like relative position to median income tends to be some of the ways that we measure those things. And that also allows for changes over time, whether it is a hard limit or just the council recommends people over this limit not accept something like that. At least that is something that I'd like to see considered in the future. And also, if you are going to make this something that gets to be chosen or opted into, it'd be really nice to see that when you put this out, when you advertise it, so that people who are already assuming that they can't really afford to give more time can see that the option is there to get some compensation for that. I think if we don't actually promote and advertise it, it makes it a bit of a moot point to some degree. Thanks.
Thank you. Plenty of. You're busy.
Was that oh, can you give me 1 second?
Sure. Next on Channel 3.
So I guess one thing I would like to come back to you with about this also is looking at the parity with the regulatory committees that currently get stipends, and if their per meeting is lower than this is, that you may also want to address those stipends.
Yep.
Okay.
Good point. Wow. All right, good enough. Next item. Item 12, appoint a clerk of the city council. I move that we appoint, I guess we should discuss it first. Any volunteers?
I will volunteer, Tim.
Wow.
I move to appoint Elizabeth Fitzgerald as clerk to the city council.
I second.
We have
I third.
motion and a
Any
second.
discussion?
And this is going to go on TV for 11 o'clock news. This is amazing right here, because somebody has graciously volunteered to be the clerk of the South Burlington City Council.
Reluctantly.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. And you even voted for yourself. That's great. It's unanimous. Welcome to your first secretarial clerkship.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Alice. And you didn't, what would we do? We approved like 15 sets of minutes today, so you're starting at 0. That's good. Okay, thank you very much. Item 13, receive an update on current committee vacancies and provide direction to staff.
So you asked me to look at this. In your packet is a memo about the current vacancies both on committees as well as other appointments. So you have 1 vacancy each on energy, sextons, and economic development. You also have an airport vacancy in the airport commission, the CCRPC, the alternate for airport, alternate for CCRPC, both which were held by Mike Scanlon, and then clean water. But I would recommend you hold on those for staff. So you can either direct me to advertise. You can make direct appointments. This is where you are.
Should we advertise again? Do you want to advertise is there a time frame that we just do it as soon as possible, or do you want to wait till it's August?
September, give people a month.
Advertise in August and interview in September? Yeah. What do we typically have from advertisement to the deadline to receive the applications? Is it 3 weeks?
Usually 3 weeks.
Okay.
But usually it's 2 weeks, and we build in a week to extend.
Okay. All right. Let's do that.
Okay.
And you'll use Front Porch Forum and the other paper. And is there another? Oh, the city bulletin. Yes, SBB. Yeah.
For just the policy committees, or for the airport alternate and the CCRPC alternate.
What? Oh,
Whoa.
the other ones, the alternates. Did you just tell us that you wanted staff, or did you give some?
I recommend you hold on the Clean Water Advisory Committee for staff.
Okay.
But you have an alternate. Mike Scanlon was the alternate on the Airport Commission and the alternate on CCRPC.
Oh.
I'd be happy to do either or both of those.
And likewise.
You want to
Okay, so
yeah, which one? I'd take the airport.
whatever. Fine, I'll take the CRP.
So okay. Do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
Could somebody move that, please?
I move that we appoint Andrew, the alternate for the CCRPC, and Tim for the alternate for the Airport Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Boom. Done. Item 14. Oh, can I have a motion to enter Liquor Control Commission?
So moved.
Second.
We have a
Third.
motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We're now Liquor Control. Can I have a motion to approve the applications for Zen Guard's first third-class liquor license?
Move to approve the applications.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we need a motion to come out.
Move to come out of Liquor Control Commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 See, that's how it's done. Yeah. We don't fool around with liquor control. It's like bada bing, bada bang. Okay. So that's approved. And now we're going to review the significant agenda topics for August 4th meeting. 2025. Just in case you didn't know, it was 2 years in a row. 2025.
And we have one item added to that now.
So you've added the LDRs
Yeah.
Yeah.
again. You're going to receive the Exit 14 scoping study. You're going to receive, as Councilor Fitzgerald mentioned earlier, a request from the Housing Committee to amend the criteria for the Housing Trust Fund. Consider an agreement between the SB3C and the city, which is the South Burlington City Center Collaborative, the Transferable Development Rights Report, and the TDRs.
Sounds
An
good.
executive session on, yes. Could we talk about possibly holding that executive session before the council meeting at like 5:30 on August 4th?
Which executive session is that?
Which executive?
To City Green.
City Green is.
Oh, the one that has to be added. Sure. On August 4th, I think that's okay.
That way you would have that information going into the LDR conversation.
Okay.
5:30.
Good.
Thank you.
Now, item 16, other business. Is there any other business tonight? Okay, hearing none. 17, proposed executive session. We have two, items 17 and 18 are both proposed executive sessions, so can I have a motion, please? Wait.
Hold on. Sorry. Lori, can I ask you to read these just because you're close to me?
Yeah. I move that the council make a specific finding that premature general public knowledge of the council's discussion of confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the council specifically relating to settlement agreement and the appointment of a public officer, specifically the police chief, clearly place this public body at a substantial disadvantage. I now move.
No, you have to approve that. You have to take that motion.
So we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 It's unanimous.
I now move that the city enter into executive session under 1 VSA 313A1F and A3 for the purpose of discussing confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the council and appointment of a public officer. Inviting Jesse Baker, Steve Locke, and Colin McNeil into session with council for discussion and Paul Connor. He's gonna say.
So we have a motion.
Hold on.
We have
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous again. So we are in executive session now. We're
We-
going to stay in the room.
We will not come out to make any future decisions, so we are done for the night.